Long before the sun rose over familiar lands, before mountains held their quiet shapes against the sky, there was only the vast, gentle unfolding of the world. A soft stillness lingered everywhere, like the hushed pause before a breeze sweeps through a sleeping forest. From this calm, the earth, Gaia stirred, stretching in quiet, slow movements. Her body, the soil and stone, the rolling hills and valleys, held warmth beneath the surface, a life she had not yet given form. From Gaia's tender depths rose Uranus, the sky. His presence hovered above her, an infinite stretch of blue, sometimes soft and clear, sometimes shrouded in gentle clouds. Gaia's hands reached up, fingers brushing against his distant expanse. Together, they made the first whispers of life. First came mountains, solid and unmoving, like old thoughts carved from patience itself. Then rivers followed, their waters warm, spilling and winding through the quiet land. From their union, Gaia and Uranus gave birth to beings of great and subtle power, the Titans. Among these first children, Cronus was born. He was not the largest, nor the most commanding at first glance, but there was a steadiness in him, a quiet certainty that drew attention like the soft light of dawn spreading across the sky. He moved slowly, thoughtfully, his presence marked by a calm curiosity. Even as a child, Cronus felt the rhythm of the earth and sky, the pulse of something larger than himself. His eyes, dark yet gentle, seemed to watch both the beginnings and the unfolding, taking in the quiet growth of the world. The early days of Cronus's life were filled with stillness. He wandered across the broad plains of Gaia, feeling the texture of the soil beneath his feet, listening to the trickle of streams, and watching clouds drift across Uranus's vastness. The other Titans played and shouted in bursts of energy, but Cronus preferred slow walks under the sunlight, his thoughts winding like the rivers, observing how life moved and shifted. He felt the hidden currents, the gentle tension that held the world in balance. Uranus, high above, sometimes looked down upon his children with warmth. Other times he seemed distant, lost in his own endless thoughts, stretching across the sky without pause. Gaia, tender and patient, whispered her love to each of her children. She told them stories, soft and low, of the things yet to come, mountains that would rise higher, rivers that would wander farther, stars that would dance in the night. Cronus often listened quietly, absorbing her words like water into soil. As days passed into nights, and nights folded softly into more days, Cronus began to notice something delicate yet persistent. Uranus, in his grandeur, often held the Titans tightly, as if his distance alone was not enough. He kept them near, close to the skies that were his own, leaving Gaia uneasy. She would murmur beneath the surface, her voice soft and tremulous, like wind through leaves. "Children should have room to grow," she whispered. Cronus, hearing this, felt a small tension coil quietly inside him. He could feel the world's pulse stretching, pressing gently against the edges of confinement. Cronus began to wander further, stepping beyond the usual play of the other Titans. In secluded valleys, he found quiet pools reflecting the sky above, mirrored so perfectly that he sometimes wondered if the water was another sky entirely. He dipped his fingers in, feeling the cool shimmer on his skin. Each touch seemed to echo something deeper, a rhythm of beginnings and endings, a dance of holding and releasing. These moments, calm and soft, became his secret places, hidden refuges where he could think freely. At night, when Uranus receded into distant stars, the Titans gathered around Gaia. Fires were not yet needed. The air was gentle and still. The younger Titans sometimes fell asleep, their breathing slow and even, blending with the soft hum of the earth. Cronus would lie beside his siblings, gazing upward. The stars, though faint, shone like points of quiet curiosity. He imagined them listening too, whispering gentle encouragement as they had for millennia. Sometimes he whispered back, his voice soft and almost lost in the vastness above. Over time, Cronus sensed a quiet frustration building within Gaia. Uranus, though vast and magnificent, did not bend. He held tight what she wished to let grow freely. Cronus, feeling this subtle unrest, wondered if there was a way to ease the tension, a way to let life breathe fully without harm. He observed Uranus carefully, noting patterns in the sky's movements, small shifts in light and shadow. He learned patience, the rhythm of waiting, of watching without rushing, the quiet power in choosing the right moment. He did not speak to the others about these feelings. Some titans noticed him alone in valleys, tracing the paths of rivers and clouds with contemplative gaze. Others laughed and played, unaware of the soft currents moving beneath the surface. Cronus watched, learning the gentle difference between action and understanding. He learned that strength could exist without harshness, that one could guide without force, if only the timing was right. And so the days of early growth passed in quiet reflection. Cronus became known not for loud deeds, but for the patience he carried like a soft mantle over his shoulders. He felt the pulse of Gaia in his feet, the watchful expanse of Uranus above. He felt the presence of his siblings, sometimes boisterous, sometimes calm. Each day brought small wonders, a bird song in the distance, the glimmer of dew on leaves, the gentle ripple of water in hidden pools. Each moment deepened his understanding, knitting him quietly to the world around him. As he lay under the evening sky, Cronus felt the beginnings of questions forming, questions he could not yet answer. They were not urgent or fearful questions, but gentle curiosities, like the quiet stir of wind before it moves a leaf. What was his place among the Titans? How could he honor Gaia's soft voice in the distant reach of Uranus? Could he hold the balance between sky and earth, between restraint and freedom? These questions folded into him like whispered songs, leaving a sense of quiet anticipation for what might come. Night settled fully, soft and embracing, and Cronus closed his eyes beside a gentle stream. The air smelled faintly of earth and stone, of flowers not yet blooming. Somewhere above, Uranus shimmered faintly, distant and eternal. Gaia hummed softly through the soil. The world, immense and tender, felt alive in its slow, gentle unfolding. And Cronus, with a quiet breath, allowed himself to rest, knowing that each day, each moment, would guide him toward the understanding he sought. In this soft, unfolding dawn of life, Cronus dreamed, not of grand battles or loud triumphs, but of balance, of careful steps through a world of quiet wonder. The stars twinkled softly, the rivers murmured, and the mountains held their patient vigil. And as he drifted deeper into sleep, a gentle sense of anticipation lingered, a quiet feeling that the story of the Titans, of the sky, and of the earth had only just begun. The days passed slowly, like soft currents moving through a hidden river, carrying whispers of what might come. Cronus wandered often in the quiet places of Gaia, places untouched by his siblings' boisterous games or Uranus's distant shadow. He liked to follow the paths where sunlight slipped between leaves and traced patterns on the earth. Each tree, each stone, each ripple of water seemed to hold a story, a gentle secret that he could almost hear if he leaned close enough. The air smelled faintly of moss, of sun-warmed soil, and the faint sweetness of flowers that had yet to bloom. In the morning, he would walk along the hillsides, the soft grass brushing against his feet. The wind was always mild here, carrying with it the distant scent of the sea that he had never fully seen, only imagined. Sometimes he would pause beside a pool, perfectly still, its surface like glass reflecting both the sky above and the stones below. Cronus would trace his fingers along the edge of the water, feeling the coolness seep into his skin, watching how ripples spread and vanished, leaving the reflection smooth and unbroken once more. It reminded him of the world itself, gentle, ever-changing, yet patient and enduring. Yet even in these quiet moments, he felt a subtle tension beneath the calm. Uranus, high above, sometimes hovered too closely, his presence immense and unyielding. He could not be touched, not fully, yet his weight was always there. Gaia whispered often, her voice carried up in gentle murmurs through the roots and soil. She spoke of the need for freedom, for space, for life to grow without restraint. The children must breathe, she said softly, her words curling around Cronus's mind like a warm, lingering wind. He did not always understand fully, but he felt the truth in them, like the pulse of the earth beneath his feet. Cronus's siblings, the other Titans, moved around him with energy that was sometimes too bright, too fast. Some of them would run across the plains, shouting and laughing, their voices carrying far into the valleys. Others would chase clouds or leap from one hill to another, their movements sharp and sudden. Cronus preferred the quiet spaces in between, where he could listen, watch, and think. Sometimes he wondered if they noticed the world the way he did, or if they only noticed each other. Sometimes he wondered if even Uranus himself understood the delicate balance Gaia had woven into everything beneath him. The days grew longer, and Cronus began to notice patterns in the sky, subtle shifts in light, faint changes in the stars as they wheeled overhead. Uranus's reach sometimes pressed down too tightly, holding his children closer than Gaia wished. Cronus saw it in the way the clouds moved reluctantly, like water held behind a soft dam. He felt it in the tremor of the mountains, in the quiet sigh of the soil as it tried to stretch and grow. And he felt it most in the gentle murmurs of Gaia, whose patience was vast, but whose worry occasionally leaked through. One evening, as the sky blushed with soft shades of peach and lavender, Cronus walked to a hidden glade. A stream wound through it, its waters silvered by the fading light. He knelt beside it, brushing his hand through the current. It felt alive, cool, and fluid, whispering of movement and change. He watched leaves float gently downstream, carried by a quiet force. It was the same force he felt stirring within himself, a quiet insistence that life should be free, that the world should have room to breathe. In that moment, a small voice inside him whispered, almost like a thought borrowed from Gaia herself. Perhaps change could come, not through anger or loud actions, but through careful, patient choices. Perhaps he could be part of it, not by force, but by understanding and timing. He imagined guiding the flow, like the stream in his hands, letting it move naturally, but shaping it gently when needed. The thought was comforting, and it settled deep into his chest, alongside a warm, steady rhythm. At night, when the stars began to glimmer softly, Cronus would sometimes lie on a gentle slope, watching their pale light stretch across the land. The quiet of night wrapped around him like a soft cloak. He could hear the faint murmurs of his siblings sleeping, the subtle movements of creatures in the underbrush, the gentle rustle of leaves in the wind. The sky above seemed infinite, and yet in that infinity he felt a presence, not threatening, but vast and patient. He imagined the stars listening, tiny points of light witnessing the slow, careful stirring of his thoughts. Gaia often whispered beneath him, her voice barely rising above the hum of the night. She spoke of patience, of observation, of the quiet strength that comes from knowing the right moment. Cronus listened, letting her words settle like dew on the grass, knowing that they would guide him. He did not rush, for he had learned that time itself could teach, that waiting and understanding could be as powerful as action. As he lay there, a gentle curiosity began to bloom within him. What might it feel like to hold the balance between sky and earth? Could he find a way to honor both Uranus and Gaia, to create harmony without causing harm? The questions were soft, like whispers floating on the wind. They were not urgent or frightening, but full of quiet wonder. They made him feel alive, attuned to the world in a way that was patient and calm. The following morning, the soft golden light of dawn spilled over the hills. Cronus rose slowly, feeling the cool grass beneath his feet. Birds sang in the distance, their songs delicate threads woven through the still air. Streams shimmered faintly in the sun, moving endlessly, carrying reflections of sky and stone. He walked through the gentle warmth, observing the subtle interactions of the world. Every ripple, every shadow, every breath of wind seemed to carry meaning. Cronus began to notice how Uranus sometimes loosened his grip, if only slightly. The sky shifted, letting light spill freely into places that had been dim before. Gaia sighed in relief through the earth, her soft voice brushing against him like wind through tall grass. Cronus felt the small victories of patience, the quiet unfolding of change, like a river slowly carving a path through stone. And he knew deep in the soft chambers of his mind that this was only the beginning. Even in the midst of quiet, gentle days, Cronus sensed the faintest stirrings of destiny. He did not yet understand the shape it would take or how he would play a part. But he felt it in the rhythm of the streams, in the whispers of leaves, in the subtle shifts of the sky. The world was vast, calm, and patient, and within it he would find his path one quiet step at a time. As night approached again, the air cool and fragrant with earth and growing things, Cronus rested beside the same gentle stream. The water mirrored the stars above, tiny points of light dancing softly on its surface. He touched the ripples with his fingertips, sending gentle waves across the reflection. In that simple, soft act, he felt the quiet hope, a sense that careful actions could shape the world without harshness or force. And as he drifted to sleep under the tender watch of the sky, he held a small, luminous thought close to his heart, that even in a world of vast power, gentle patience could guide the course of things, that the flow of life could be respected, understood, and, when needed, quietly directed, that the stirrings of change did not always arrive with noise or fear, but sometimes with subtle, enduring wisdom. In the hush of night, Cronus dreamed of a world stretching gently, endlessly, under the careful dance of sky and earth. And somewhere in that quiet, vast expanse, he felt the first soft pulses of the choices he might one day make, guiding the unfolding of the Titans and the harmony of all things. The gentle rhythm of days passed quietly for Cronus, yet beneath the calm surface, a subtle stirring began to ripple through the world. The other Titans, usually filled with laughter and slow, soft play, sometimes exchanged glances and whispers, hints of discomfort they did not fully understand. Cronus noticed it first as a faint tension in the air, almost imperceptible, like the quiet pause before rain falls or a leaf trembles in the wind. He walked among his siblings, observing without judgment, feeling the subtle vibrations of unease in the earth and sky. Uranus, the vast expanse above, continued his steady watch over all the Titans. Sometimes his gaze seemed distant and gentle, stretching across the horizon like a soft, endless blanket of blue. Other times it pressed closer, as if he could hold all the children beneath him, keeping them safe yet confined. Cronus felt the push and pull of this presence, a sky that could shelter, yet also restrain. He sensed Gaia's worry and quiet murmurs beneath the soil. "They must be free to grow," she whispered, her voice soft as dew on the morning grass. Cronus felt the weight of her words, carrying them with him like a gentle promise to act with care. He walked slowly through the hills, watching rivers wind through valleys, listening to the soft rush of water over stones. The rivers seemed to carry secrets, murmuring of patterns that were old and patient, yet sometimes forced. The leaves on the trees stirred in the breeze, whispering faintly to one another, hinting at feelings the Titans had not yet spoken aloud. Cronus felt a small tightening in his chest, a quiet recognition that the world was beginning to shift, subtly, like the movement of a tide under the moon. The other Titans were not yet fully aware of the tensions Uranus's hold created. They played and sang, and sometimes they argued softly over small things. A shadow cast wrongly, a stone that seemed out of place, a stream that ran slower than expected. Cronus watched, his thoughts slow and deliberate, noticing patterns and possibilities. He felt that small ripples of conflict were natural, but he also sensed that if left unchecked, they could grow into something that might disturb the gentle rhythm of the earth. One morning, as soft light spilled over the peaks of distant mountains, Cronus wandered to a quiet grove. The air smelled faintly of wet stone and early blossoms. The soft rustle of leaves above him created a gentle music, harmonizing with the distant murmur of streams. Here he paused, letting the breeze brush against his skin, and he felt a stirring beneath the calm, a quiet yearning to act, to honor Gaia's gentle guidance, and to restore balance where it might be shifting too far. Cronus thought of Uranus, high above, magnificent, and eternal. The sky's beauty was undeniable, yet it had an unbending nature that sometimes pressed too firmly upon the earth and the children below. Cronus considered how he might find a way to bring freedom without harshness, to allow life to stretch and unfold gently, like the rivers and winds he loved. His mind turned slowly over possibilities, each one weighed with care, each one considered in the soft light of understanding rather than force. The other Titans began to notice the subtle pressures as well, though they did not yet fully understand them. They gathered in small groups, whispering, their voices soft and cautious. Some felt frustration, some unease, but none spoke loudly enough to shatter the calm. Cronus, observing quietly, felt the delicate pulse of the group, the gentle undercurrent of desire for freedom, for room to move, to grow, to explore beyond the limits set by Uranus. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky with soft shades of rose and amber, Cronus found himself at the edge of a broad plain. The grass swayed gently in the wind, carrying the faint scent of flowers and sun-warmed soil. He knelt beside a small stream and traced his fingers through the cool, flowing water. Its gentle current mirrored the subtle stirrings he had sensed in his siblings and in Gaia herself. He could almost feel the world breathing slowly, gently, as if waiting for him to understand his part in the quiet unfolding. Cronus's thoughts drifted further, deeper, as he followed the small stream along its winding path. He imagined the rivers carrying not just water, but guidance, shaping the valleys gently over time. Perhaps change could be like this, he thought, not sudden or harsh, but patient and deliberate, flowing steadily until it reached its intended course. The thought comforted him, wrapping around his mind like a soft cloak of reassurance. At night, when the stars began to shimmer above, Cronus lay beneath the gentle sky. The air was cool, filled with the faint scent of earth and blossoms. He listened to the distant whispers of his siblings, the quiet hum of the earth beneath him, and the faint, constant pulse of the sky. He felt a growing sense of responsibility, not burdensome or heavy, but steady and calm. The world, vast and patient, seemed to trust him in a subtle way, offering small hints and guidance through the currents of wind and water. He began to recognize patterns in his siblings' actions, subtle movements and gestures that spoke of curiosity, frustration, or hesitation. He noticed which streams they tended to follow, which hills they climbed, and which valleys they lingered in. Each choice reflected a small desire for freedom, for understanding, for gentle expression. Cronus felt a quiet hope that, through careful guidance, the natural rhythm of life could unfold without conflict or fear, if only he could understand the right way to act. One night, as the moon rose, soft and silver over the quiet land, Cronus dreamed of the balance between sky and earth. He imagined holding both gently, not constraining either, but letting each move as it wished, flowing and stretching within the limits of respect. In his dreams, he walked among streams, over hills, and beneath the vast expanse of Uranus, feeling the soft pulse of Gaia beneath his feet. Every step was deliberate, thoughtful, and calm, carrying the promise of patience and understanding. When he awoke with the first touch of dawn, Cronus felt a quiet determination stirring within him. Not yet urgent, not yet forceful, but steady and soft. He would watch, learn, and wait for the right moment to act, not out of anger, but out of care for the world and those he loved. The soft tension that had begun in the hearts of his siblings could be guided, he thought, like a gentle wind steering a leaf along its path, rather than breaking it. Through days and nights, Cronus continued his quiet exploration, walking among streams and valleys, observing clouds drifting slowly across the sky. He felt the gentle stirrings of the earth, the subtle pull of Uranus, and the faint whispers of his siblings. All of these together formed a pattern, like threads woven into a tapestry, intricate and delicate. He understood that the world was not static, it moved, breathed, and shifted, and he would need both patience and wisdom to navigate it carefully. And so the days of subtle unrest passed quietly, filled with observation and reflection. Cronus's mind grew in calm understanding, his senses attuned to the delicate balance of the world around him. He did not yet know exactly how he would act, but he felt a growing certainty that the time would come when gentle, careful guidance was needed. The gentle anticipation, like the soft promise of sunrise over distant mountains, lingered in his heart, quietly, steadily, waiting for the moment it would bloom into action. As the stars began to shimmer faintly above the land once more, Cronus lay by the stream he had come to know so well. The water reflected the sky, the mountains, and the soft rustle of leaves, capturing the quiet rhythm of the world. He placed his hand upon the earth, feeling its pulse beneath him, and let himself breathe with it. He sensed that change, when it came, would be slow and deliberate, like the rivers carving valleys, like the wind shaping hills, like the stars tracing paths across the sky. And in that calm, patient moment, Cronus allowed himself to rest, readying his mind and heart for the quiet stirrings of what was yet to come. The days continued to unfold slowly, each one stretching like the soft, warm light of dawn across the quiet hills. Cronus wandered among the hills and valleys with a gentle awareness of everything around him. The air carried the faint scent of earth and moss, mingled with the whisper of early blossoms that had begun to peek through the soil. Each step he took pressed lightly against the soft ground, leaving faint impressions that were quickly smoothed by the wind or hidden beneath the cool shadow of a passing cloud. He often paused beside streams, watching the water slip smoothly over stones and around bends. The way the currents moved, never harshly, never abruptly, always fascinated him. He traced patterns in the ripples with his fingers, imagining how every movement had a purpose, a gentle direction that could shape what lay ahead. In the quiet of these moments, he realized that the world around him mirrored the gentle stirrings inside him. The soft tensions among the Titans, the subtle constraints imposed by Uranus, the faint worry of Gaia, all of these were part of a current that might be guided without violence, If only he could find the right way. Cronus's mind was increasingly occupied with thoughts of balance and timing. He began to notice how each Titan moved differently, some impulsive and bright, others slower, thoughtful, and careful. Their voices and laughter filled the valleys during the day, soft echoes that lingered like the gentle hum of wind through trees. Sometimes, however, those voices carried traces of impatience or confusion. Cronus sensed that these quiet frustrations, if left to grow, could disturb the delicate rhythm of the world. One afternoon, he climbed to a ridge where the grass was soft underfoot and the air smelled faintly of sun-warmed stone. From this vantage, he could see the far edges of the lands Gaia had shaped. The rolling hills, the shimmering rivers, and the distant mountains standing like guardians of time itself. Even Uranus seemed softer here, stretched high above, his vast expanse reflecting gentle clouds drifting lazily across the sky. Cronus breathed deeply, feeling the warmth of the sun on his shoulders and the soft brush of wind against his skin. In the silence, he began to think more deliberately about the future and his place within it. For the first time, he considered action, not abrupt or violent, but thoughtful, patient action that could restore balance and freedom. He imagined guiding the currents of the world, like the streams he so often observed, shaping the flow of life without forcing it. The thought settled quietly in him, like the faint pulse of the earth beneath his feet. He understood that he must move carefully, observing, waiting, and learning before stepping forward. The other Titans sometimes approached him during these moments, their voices low and soft. Some were curious about his quiet habits, others simply enjoyed the calm that seemed to surround him. Cronus spoke little, listening instead, absorbing their words and gestures. He noticed the subtle expressions on their faces, the faint tension of brows, the gentle hesitation in movements, the quiet longing in their eyes. These small signs spoke to him more clearly than loud words ever could, revealing the desires and fears that flowed beneath their daily laughter. One evening, as twilight bathed the world in soft shades of rose and amber, Cronus walked to a quiet glade where the wind carried the faint scent of damp leaves and stone. The stream here was narrower, moving quickly over smooth stones, carrying the reflection of the sky in soft ripples. He knelt beside it and ran his fingers along the surface, feeling the cool water slip between them. It reminded him that movement, even when gentle, could guide the course of things. Perhaps he could act in the same way, shaping events with subtle care, letting life grow and unfold naturally while steering it toward harmony. That night, Cronus lay on a gentle slope beneath the vast sky. The stars glimmered softly, scattered like faint specks of silver across a deep blue canvas. He listened to the quiet breathing of his siblings, the gentle rustle of leaves, the soft hum of the earth beneath him. Gaia's whispers reached him in subtle vibrations, reminding him of her quiet encouragement and hope. "Balance must be kept," she murmured through the soil. "Gentleness, patience, and care will guide you." Cronus closed his eyes and let his thoughts drift like the clouds overhead. He considered the ways in which he might guide the Titans and the world itself. Perhaps he could act slowly, like the river shaping its bed over time, observing every movement, every ripple, and responding only when necessary. He imagined small adjustments, whispers of guidance, careful suggestions, quiet acts that would create freedom without harm. The possibilities unfolded gently, like petals opening in the soft morning light. He also reflected on Uranus, whose presence was vast and sometimes unyielding. Cronus did not feel anger toward the sky, only a gentle desire for balance. He wondered if Uranus could learn to ease his hold, to allow room for the Titans to explore and grow. Perhaps, he thought, it was not a matter of force or defiance, but of timing, of subtle shifts, of patient guidance. The thought felt like a quiet promise, a soft flame of hope glowing steadily within him. The following days were filled with quiet observation and reflection. Cronus wandered through the valleys and hills, noting the gentle habits of the other Titans, the slow movement of clouds, the tiny shifts in streams and rivers. He found joy in the small details, the song of a bird in the distance, the faint shimmer of dew on grass, the soft murmur of a brook as it curved around stones. Each moment seemed to carry a hidden lesson, teaching him patience, attentiveness, and the quiet strength of understanding before action. One afternoon, he discovered a small hollow at the base of an ancient oak. The air there smelled of moss and earth, warm and comforting. He settled himself beside it, feeling the rough bark against his shoulder, and let the soft light filter through the leaves above. The world seemed to pause around him, holding its breath. In that pause, Cronus allowed himself to think of the future, the changes he hoped to guide, the gentle shifts he might bring, and the freedom he wished for his siblings. He imagined the Titans moving without fear, exploring the hills and rivers, laughing softly without tension pressing on their hearts. He imagined Uranus stretching across the sky with a softer presence, allowing space for life to unfold beneath him. And he imagined Gaia, patient and tender, smiling quietly as her children grew freely in harmony. The thought filled him with calm purpose, a gentle determination to act when the right moment came. As night fell again, the stars glittered faintly above, soft and constant. Cronus lay by the stream, letting the cool water run over his fingers, listening to the hum of life around him. He felt the quiet pulse of the earth, the subtle movements of his siblings, and the vast presence of the sky. He knew that his time to act was not yet, but he also felt that the moment would come. When it did, it would be gentle, deliberate, and wise, like the slow shaping of rivers or the careful dance of leaves in the wind. And in the calm of that night, with the world breathing softly around him, Cronus let himself rest, holding a quiet certainty close to his heart. That change could come without harshness, that freedom could grow without fear, and that patience, observation, and care would guide the path ahead. The stars above shimmered faintly, the streams whispered their gentle songs, and the mountains stood silently, guardians of the quiet unfolding of time. Cronus closed his eyes and allowed himself to drift into sleep, carrying with him the soft anticipation of what was to come, knowing that the seeds of thought planted now would one day bloom into gentle action. The days moved softly, one into the other, each carrying the gentle rhythm of life. Cronus wandered through the hills and valleys, tracing familiar paths where the sunlight pooled in golden patches and streams whispered over smooth stones. Even in the quietest moments, he noticed subtle changes around him. The sway of the grass in the wind, the reflection of clouds on still pools, the faint murmur of his siblings' voices in distant valleys. The world seemed to breathe in its slow, deliberate way, carrying a rhythm that Cronus had begun to understand. He observed his siblings carefully. Some were playful, rushing through the fields with laughter like wind through leaves. Others lingered at streams or climbed hills, thoughtful and quiet, much like he had always been. Cronus noticed small signs of discomfort or hesitation in their movements, frowns that quickly faded, hands brushing against something unseen, quiet pauses in conversation. The subtle tension that Uranus's presence sometimes pressed upon them had not gone unnoticed, and Cronus felt a quiet responsibility stirring within him. One morning, as soft sunlight spread over the gentle slopes, Cronus sat on a rock overlooking a winding river. He watched the water float smoothly around stones, reflecting patches of sky in its gentle ripples. It seemed to him that the river's course was not forced but guided by patient shaping over time. He realized that change, like the river, could be gentle yet persistent. Perhaps, he thought, he could help guide the Titans in a similar way, not through force, but through careful, quiet influence. Cronus began to notice how his siblings responded to subtle hints. A softly offered suggestion, a patient pause, or a gentle gesture could redirect their attention or curiosity without drawing harsh attention. He experimented quietly, placing himself in moments where he could observe and influence small choices. A leaf falling in the wrong place might be nudged. A stream's path might be followed to a quiet pool. A question from a sibling might be met with a patient, thoughtful answer. Each small action felt like a tiny step toward balance, a careful shaping of events without disruption. In the afternoons, when the air carried the faint scent of blossoms and warm earth, Cronus would walk to a quiet glade. The soft rustle of leaves and the gentle murmur of streams created a delicate music that encouraged thought. Here, he would sit and consider the subtle dynamics among the Titans. Who moved impulsively and who hesitated? Who spoke loudly and who whispered their curiosity? Every observation gave him more understanding of how balance could be maintained, how freedom could coexist with the guidance of patience. One day, as the sun lingered low on the horizon, Cronus found himself beside a gentle pool surrounded by ancient stones. The water was clear and still, reflecting the soft colors of the sky above. He knelt and dipped his hands into the cool liquid, feeling the smoothness of pebbles beneath the surface and the gentle current brushing against his fingers. It occurred to him that subtle, deliberate action could guide life without harsh interference. Just as the stream shaped the valley over time, he could shape the world around him through careful thought and gentle influence. That evening, Cronus walked slowly among his siblings, offering quiet words or soft gestures. Some barely noticed the hints he offered, yet others subtly shifted in response. A hesitant Titan tried a new path through the hills and found joy in the discovery. A shy sibling found the courage to explore a stream's edge. These small successes, unnoticed by the vast eye of Uranus, gave Cronus a gentle sense of satisfaction. He understood that real influence did not require power or force. It required patience, understanding, and timing. The nights were especially comforting to Cronus. He would lie beneath the vast sky, letting the soft light of stars wash over him. The air smelled faintly of earth, stone, and flowers yet to bloom. He listened to the soft breathing of the world, the rustle of leaves, the murmur of streams, the faint pulse of life moving beneath his feet. Gaia's whispers, gentle and encouraging, reached him through the soil. Patience, she murmured, is a quiet strength. Observation is a guide, and care is power. Cronus felt the truth in her words and let them settle deeply into his mind. Over time, he began to see patterns forming, not in a hurried or harsh way, but slowly, gently, like clouds drifting across the sky. Certain Titans preferred certain hills, certain streams, certain quiet corners of the land. Some were curious and impulsive, others thoughtful and slow. Each had their natural rhythm, and Cronus began to imagine how those rhythms could be guided, not restrained, so that harmony might flourish. The awareness grew quietly inside him, like the soft glow of dawn spreading across the land. Cronus also reflected on Uranus, high and unyielding in the sky. The vastness of the heavens was a constant presence, sometimes comforting, sometimes pressing. He understood that Uranus's intentions were not cruel, only immense and firm, and that the sky had its own rhythms and patterns. But Cronus sensed that the subtle tension caused by Uranus's closeness could be eased, if approached carefully. Perhaps he could act in such a way that the Titans felt more freedom, more space, without challenging the sky harshly. The idea settled softly in his mind, a small seed of careful planning that might one day grow. During these days, Cronus began to notice how small gestures could ripple quietly through the world. A gentle word, a patient smile, a soft suggestion. These tiny actions could shift energy and attention without disrupting the natural flow. It was almost imperceptible, but over time, the effects spread. Titans began exploring more freely, laughing softly without the edge of hesitation, wandering through hills and streams with new curiosity. Cronus felt a soft pride, knowing that quiet care, observation, and patience could have a profound impact without the need for loud or forceful acts. The nights remained his refuge. Beneath the stars, Cronus often traced constellations with his finger in the cool air, imagining their slow, deliberate journeys across the sky. He felt connected to both the earth beneath and the vast heavens above. Each breath, each quiet heartbeat of the world, reminded him that change was possible, but only through gentle understanding and careful timing. He allowed himself to rest in this knowledge, knowing that patience was a quiet power that could shape events over time. And so, the days flowed softly into nights, filled with quiet observation, gentle gestures, and subtle guidance. Cronus's mind and heart grew steady, attuned to the small currents of the world around him. He did not yet take bold action, but he was planting the seeds of careful, deliberate choices that would later shape the Titans and the unfolding of their world. As he lay beneath the stars, the soft hum of the earth beneath him, the gentle rustle of leaves, and the quiet whisper of Gaia in the soil, Cronus felt a gentle certainty blooming inside him. Change could come without harshness, freedom could grow without fear, and careful, patient guidance could shape the world. The soft anticipation lingered in his chest, like a quiet promise waiting to bloom, as the first delicate threads of action began to weave themselves into the tapestry of the Titans' lives. The days flowed gently over the hills and valleys, each one carrying the same quiet rhythm that Cronus had grown to cherish. Sunlight spilled softly across the slopes, warming the grass and stones, while the air carried faint fragrances of earth, moss, and early blooms. Even the rivers seemed calmer now, moving with a steady, unhurried pace, reflecting the gentle light of the sun. Cronus walked often along their banks, feeling the soft brush of wind against his skin, listening to the murmuring water and watching its steady, patient journey toward the horizon. Yet beneath this calm, he felt a faint, persistent stirring. The Titans, his siblings, moved about with quiet unease, their laughter occasionally faltering, their games interrupted by sudden pauses. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but Cronus noticed. He sensed that the presence of Uranus above, the vast sky, constant and unyielding, sometimes weighed heavily upon them. Their energy, once entirely free and playful, now bent slightly under the pressure of a gentle, invisible hand. Cronus felt a responsibility forming within him, a quiet certainty that he could help guide this energy without force, only through careful observation and subtle action. One afternoon, he climbed to a ridge that overlooked a wide valley. The sun lay low, painting the land in soft shades of gold and amber, and a gentle breeze carried the scent of soil and stone. From this vantage, Cronus could see his siblings moving slowly below, exploring streams, climbing hills, or pausing by flowering trees. He observed the faint hesitations in their movements, the occasional frown that crossed a face, the whispered words exchanged in quiet corners. Each small sign was a thread in a delicate tapestry, and Cronus felt the importance of understanding each one before acting. He sat on a smooth rock, feeling its warmth through the soles of his feet, and let his thoughts wander. The rivers, the hills, the streams of wind, they all had a rhythm, a gentle way of shaping the land over time. Perhaps, he thought, he could act in a similar fashion, guiding the Titans slowly and patiently, without harshness or abruptness. The idea comforted him, wrapping around his heart like a soft cloak of reassurance. Action did not have to be loud or violent. It could be quiet, deliberate, and enduring. The Titans themselves seemed to respond to the presence of calm and careful thought. When Cronus walked among them, offering a patient word, a gentle gesture, or even a quiet smile, small changes began to ripple outward. One Titan wandered into a hidden grove and discovered a stream she had never noticed before. Another explored a hilltop he had never climbed, his laughter light and free. Cronus watched quietly, allowing these moments to unfold naturally, without forcing direction. Each small success, invisible to Uranus but clear to him, strengthened his understanding that patience and gentle guidance could be profoundly effective. At night, Cronus often lay beneath the vast sky, feeling the cool grass beneath him and the faint warmth of the earth's pulse. The stars glimmered softly, their light like tiny whispers across the infinite expanse. He listened to the gentle hum of life, the rustle of leaves, the murmuring of distant streams, the soft breathing of his siblings nearby. Gaia's quiet voice came to him through the soil, gentle and persistent. "Balance must be honored," she whispered, "and care can shape what the heart alone cannot move." Cronus absorbed these words deeply, letting them nestling in his mind like seeds planted in fertile soil. One evening, as the soft twilight spread across the land, Cronus walked along a stream whose waters shimmered like silver in the fading light. He knelt beside it, letting his fingers trace the gentle ripples, feeling the cool water flow smoothly over smooth stones. Watching the currents, he understood something profound. Even small nudges could shape the path of a river over time, guiding it subtly but surely to where it was meant to flow. Perhaps he could act in the same way, gently influencing the currents of his siblings' lives, helping them to grow freely, while respecting the immensity of Uranus above. Cronus began to notice that subtle actions could have effects far beyond what he expected. A quiet suggestion, a patient gesture, a soft word could redirect curiosity, spark gentle laughter, or ease a hesitant step. Each ripple spread slowly through the group, unseen but felt, like the gentle sway of a tree in a quiet breeze. He realized that the smallest act, performed with patience and understanding, could guide events without harshness or force. In the mornings, the world seemed especially alive, soft light spilling across hills and valleys, dew clinging to leaves and grass, the faint hum of insects beginning their gentle songs. Cronus would walk slowly, noticing patterns in the behavior of his siblings and the subtle ways the earth responded to the light, wind, and water. He began to imagine how he might shape these interactions in the future, not through dominance, but through careful observation and gentle influence. Even Uranus, high and majestic in the sky, seemed to move in patterns, subtle shifts that could be observed, understood and responded to. The quiet realization of responsibility settled in him, not as a burden, but as a calm certainty. He understood that the time would come when the gentle guidance he practiced now might require deliberate action. But he also knew that action could be measured, patient, and careful, rather than forceful or abrupt. Every small step he took, every quiet observation, every gentle influence, prepared him for the days ahead when the world would need his attention in ways he could not yet foresee. Night after night, Cronus lay beneath the soft canopy of stars, feeling the earth's pulse beneath him, the gentle hum of life around him, and the vast, constant presence of Uranus above. The whispers of Gaia wrapped around him like a soft, reassuring wind, reminding him of the power of patience, observation, and gentle action. He felt a quiet determination growing within him, a subtle readiness to guide the currents of life without disturbing their natural rhythm. And as he drifted into sleep, the cool air brushing against his skin, the rustle of leaves, and the distant murmurs of streams surrounding him, Cronus held a soft certainty close to his heart. Change, he understood, could come quietly. Freedom could flourish gently. And patience, combined with careful understanding, could guide the world toward harmony. The first threads of resolve were taking shape, slow and deliberate, preparing him for the choices that would one day flow softly into the course of the Titans' lives. The mornings came softly, brushing the hills with gentle light that slipped between the branches of tall trees. Dew clung to the grass, glinting like tiny mirrors under the rising sun. Cronus walked slowly along familiar paths, feeling the cool earth beneath his feet and listening to the distant murmur of streams that wound lazily through valleys. Even the air seemed alive with quiet whispers, the soft sigh of wind, the faint rustle of leaves, the subtle hum of life that carried across the hills. Yet, even in the calm of these early hours, Cronus noticed something new. The Titans, his siblings, moved with a faint hesitation that had not been there before. Their laughter, once light and unbroken, faltered at times. Their games, which often spanned the hills and valleys in carefree energy, now contained pauses, small, almost invisible moments when a hand lingered on a stone, a foot hesitated at the edge of a stream, or eyes darted toward the sky, as if sensing a presence too vast to confront. The pressure of Uranus, though constant and distant, pressed quietly into their movements, and the subtle tension was beginning to ripple across the group. Cronus watched carefully. He noticed a Titan hesitating at the edge of a small pond, staring at her reflection as if unsure whether to step in. Another paused halfway uphill, glancing toward a group of siblings before deciding to turn back, a frown just flickering across his face. Even the most playful among them seemed to carry an invisible weight, a soft uncertainty that made their actions slower, more measured. Cronus felt a gentle stirring in his chest, a sense that he could help guide these small moments, shaping them delicately without imposing his will. He wandered to a grove he favored, where sunlight filtered through a canopy of leaves, creating patches of warmth on the soft, moss-covered ground. The air smelled faintly of earth and stone, mixed with the delicate scent of flowers beginning to bloom. He knelt beside a narrow stream, letting his fingers glide through the cool water, feeling the smooth stones beneath. The water carried the reflection of the sky above, flickering with sunlight and shadows. Watching it, Cronus understood how even the gentlest touch could influence a flow over time, and he thought of how he might apply this lesson to the subtle currents among his siblings. As the day stretched on, he observed small interactions. One Titan, usually quiet, lingered by a flowering tree, hesitant to join the others. Cronus approached softly, his steps light and careful. "The blossoms are steady today," he said quietly, offering a simple observation rather than a command. The Titan looked up, eyes widening slightly, then smiled faintly before moving to follow him along the stream. Cronus felt a small warmth spread through his chest, a quiet confirmation that gentle guidance could have lasting effect. The subtle stirrings of unease among the Titans grew gradually, like a soft wind rippling the surface of a pond. Cronus could feel it beneath his skin, a faint tension in the air that prompted vigilance rather than alarm. The world was still calm, still patient, yet these faint ripples reminded him that even gentle currents could swell over time if left unnoticed. He understood that his role might not be immediate action but patient observation, shaping small choices and guiding the flow of events in quiet, careful ways. In the afternoons, the warmth of sunlight painted the hills with soft golden hues. and the breeze carried a hint of distant flowers and sun-warmed stone. Cronus often walked among his siblings, speaking softly or moving with gentle gestures. Sometimes he merely followed, letting his presence provide a sense of calm and steadiness. Other times he offered subtle guidance, suggesting a path through the hills, pointing out a quiet pool for rest, or sharing a moment of curiosity over a hidden grove. The changes were small, almost imperceptible, but they began to influence the group's rhythm, restoring a sense of freedom without disrupting the natural order. Evening brought long shadows across the valleys, and Cronus often found himself by a broader river, watching the water curve and flow around rocks. He traced the ripples with his fingers, imagining how each subtle movement shaped the river's path over time. He thought of the Titans in a similar way. Small nudges, patient guidance, and careful observation could shape their energy and curiosity, letting them explore and grow freely without direct interference. The world, he realized, was a delicate balance of forces, and each gentle act could tip the scales toward harmony or unrest. At night, the stars glittered faintly above, soft points of silver against a deep blue canvas. Cronus lay on the soft grass, listening to the quiet pulse of life around him. The faint hum of insects, the whisper of leaves, and the gentle murmur of water reminded him of the patience inherent in nature. Gaia's voice reached him once more, gentle as the breeze. "Observe, Gaia. Do not force," she whispered. "The world unfolds in its own rhythm, but care shapes its course." Cronus felt the truth in her words, allowing them to sink deeply into his heart. He reflected on Uranus as well, high and unyielding in the sky. The vast expanse, though comforting in its constancy, pressed subtly on his siblings, shaping their actions without their awareness. Cronus understood that confronting the sky directly would be neither gentle nor necessary. Instead, careful guidance of the Titans, helping them navigate this invisible pressure, could restore balance quietly. Even small decisions, when to speak, when to gesture, when to observe, had significance, and Cronus considered each one with slow, deliberate thought. The tension among the Titans sometimes led to tiny disagreements, a misplaced stone in a path, a ripple in a stream, or a shadow where sunlight had fallen moments before. Nothing loud, nothing harsh, just small hesitations that mirrored the gentle discomfort they carried. Cronus noticed these signs and used them as opportunities for soft guidance, offering calm observations, gentle suggestions, or quiet companionship. Slowly, over days and nights, he began to weave a subtle rhythm, shaping the currents of curiosity, energy, and attention among his siblings. The soft stirrings of unease were never loud, never frightening, but they were persistent enough to require patience. Cronus learned to recognize the signs, the faint frown, the slight hesitation, the quiet glance toward the sky, and to respond with gentle care. He discovered the power of observation, of timing, and of restraint. Even inaction could be a kind of influence, letting natural curiosity and choice guide events while he remained a steady presence nearby. And so the quiet days continued, each one filled with subtle shifts, small victories, and gentle lessons. Cronus moved among his siblings like a soft current, unseen but felt, shaping the flow of life with care and patience. The gentle tides of unease began to settle slightly, directed not by force, but by thoughtful guidance, observation, and the quiet strength of his resolve. As the night deepened, the stars twinkled faintly overhead, and the soft murmur of rivers and streams wrapped the world in a lullaby of calm. Cronus lay beneath the gentle sweep of the sky, listening to the earth's slow, steady pulse. He felt the first faint stirrings of purpose, a quiet readiness to guide not only his siblings but the world itself with care, patience, and understanding. Even as sleep claimed him, he held a soft certainty in his heart, that small, deliberate acts could shape the course of events, that gentle guidance could restore balance, and that the quiet tides of the world could be shaped by thoughtful, calm hands. The gentle ripples of change had begun, moving quietly through the valleys and streams, preparing the way for choices yet to come. The mornings were soft and gentle, the sun stretching slowly across the hills, brushing golden light over the dew-laden grass. Cronus walked among the slopes with deliberate calm, feeling the cool earth under his feet and inhaling the faint scent of moss, stone, and fresh blossoms. Every sound carried meaning, the whisper of leaves in the breeze, the distant murmur of a stream, the occasional laugh or sigh of his siblings. He listened with care, noticing subtleties that might have escaped others, tracing patterns in the world around him. He saw the Titans moving in ways that were increasingly nuanced. Some still carried faint hesitations, a pause here or there, while others seemed to explore with a quiet curiosity that had been absent before. Cronus realized that these small shifts were the beginning of something larger. The gentle guidance he had offered, soft words, patient gestures, and quiet companionship, was beginning to ripple through their actions. The patterns were subtle, almost invisible, but he could sense them, like a soft current shaping the path of a river over time. On one particular morning, he wandered along a narrow valley where the stream twisted between smooth stones, reflecting sunlight in delicate patterns on the surface. He noticed a young Titan hesitating by the water, unsure whether to step closer or linger on the bank. Cronus approached slowly, careful not to startle. "The stones feel cool today," he said softly, letting his voice carry a calm steadiness rather than instruction. The Titan looked up, eyes widening slightly, then dipped a toe into the water and laughed quietly at the gentle ripple. Cronus smiled inwardly, recognizing that small encouragement could guide curiosity without force. As the day unfolded, Cronus observed more subtle patterns. Certain Titans gravitated toward particular hills, others lingered by hidden groves or quiet streams. Even their laughter seemed to carry a rhythm now, soft and playful, with only the faintest traces of hesitation. He traced the interactions, noting which gentle gestures sparked joy, which quiet words encouraged exploration, and which pauses allowed reflection. Over time, these small observations began to reveal a tapestry of potential paths, a network of connections that could grow stronger with care. The afternoons were often spent wandering together with his siblings, letting him explore freely while remaining close enough to offer quiet guidance if needed. Cronus noticed that his presence alone seemed to instill confidence. A hesitant Titan would step over a small stream, inspired by the calm steadiness beside them. Another would climb a gentle slope, discovering a new vantage point, encouraged by a quiet nod or patient smile. The influence was never overt or commanding. It was subtle, like the pull of the wind shaping the branches of a tree. He also began to recognize how the Titans themselves influenced one another. One playful action could spark a ripple of curiosity, while a soft laugh could ease a hesitant step. Cronus observed these interactions carefully, noting how one small change could propagate through the group. It reminded him of the way rivers branched into smaller streams, each flowing toward its own destination while remaining part of the larger current. With patience and care, he could shape these currents gently, allowing freedom and growth to coexist in harmony. As the sun began to dip low, painting the valley with soft shades of amber and rose, Cronus sat beside a quiet pool, watching the reflections of the sky ripple in the water. The gentle murmur of a nearby stream provided a calm rhythm, and he traced the patterns of sunlight on the stones beneath the surface. He thought about Uranus, high above in the vast sky. The pressure of the heavens was ever present, yet it was not unkind, merely constant, vast, and unyielding. Cronus understood that the influence of Uranus could not be removed, but the subtle guidance of the Titan's own choices could harmonize with it, creating a gentle balance. The quiet patterns of change were becoming more visible now, not in grand gestures, but in small, repeated acts. A Titan discovering a hidden grove, another learning to balance on a smooth stone in the stream, a gentle conversation whispered under a flowering tree. Each was a thread weaving a larger tapestry of gentle growth and quiet confidence. Cronus felt a deep satisfaction, knowing that his patient, careful observation and soft influence were beginning to shape the rhythms of life around him. Evenings were especially reflective. The air cooled, carrying the scent of stone and earth, and the gentle rustle of leaves created a soothing symphony. Cronus lay on a soft patch of grass, gazing at the stars as they shimmered faintly above. The vastness of Uranus stretched endlessly, a constant presence, while the soft glow of constellations cast delicate reflections on the hills and streams. He could feel Gaia's whispers beneath the soil, gentle encouragement that reminded him of the delicate balance he was fostering. Cronus thought about the future, though he knew it was still distant. The subtle influence he practiced today, the careful observation and patient guidance, were shaping possibilities that had not yet fully unfolded. Each small decision, each quiet gesture, carried the potential to grow into something more significant, though it would require time, patience, and constant awareness. He felt no rush, no urgency, only the quiet, steady understanding that care and calm could guide even the faintest stirrings toward harmony. In the deepening twilight, he wandered slowly through the hills once more, listening to the soft echoes of his siblings' voices and the quiet hum of the earth. A gentle breeze brushed against his skin, carrying the faint scent of flowers and moss. He paused by a small stone, tracing its contours with his fingers, feeling its cool, solid surface. It reminded him that even the smallest, most stable elements could provide grounding and guidance, much like his quiet presence among the Titans. That night, as Cronus lay beneath the sky, the stars glittering softly like scattered silver dust, he allowed himself to rest in the certainty of the subtle currents he was shaping. The patterns of growth, curiosity, and gentle confidence were taking form, quiet but persistent, and he felt a soft anticipation for the ways they would continue to unfold. The first threads of change had begun, delicate and calm, flowing like rivers through hills and valleys, preparing the world for the gentle shaping yet to come. Even as sleep took him, Cronus held a quiet awareness in his heart, that patience, observation, and gentle guidance could create harmony without force, that small actions, repeated with care, could ripple through time, and that the world, though vast and sometimes imposing, could be influenced softly, slowly, with love and attention. The subtle patterns of change were emerging, and Cronus felt ready to continue weaving them, one quiet step at a time. The mornings had a softness all their own, stretching slowly over the hills, brushing the world with warm light and long, quiet shadows. Cronus wandered through the valleys, feeling the cool earth underfoot and inhaling the faint scent of stone, moss, and early blooms. Each step carried him carefully, deliberately, as if he wished to preserve the subtle harmony that had begun to emerge among his siblings. Even the soft murmur of the streams, the distant echo of wings in flight, and the gentle rustle of leaves seemed to join in the quiet rhythm of his thoughts. The Titans moved with increasing awareness. Hesitations lingered in their steps, yet curiosity also sparked more brightly. A sibling might pause at a stream, dipping a hand into the water, then smile quietly at the reflection of sunlight on the ripples. Another would wander into a grove he had discovered days before, lingering to explore the faint fragrance of flowers and the soft whisper of wind through branches. Cronus watched these movements carefully, noting how small gestures, his presence, a soft word, a patient smile, could guide them without overt instruction. One afternoon, he climbed to the gentle slope of a hill, where sunlight dappled the ground and the air smelled faintly of earth and warm stone. He settled on a smooth rock, letting the warmth seep through his skin, and allowed his thoughts to drift slowly. The world, he realized, was in a state of quiet balance, yet the subtle tensions among his siblings suggested that it would benefit from more deliberate care. He began to consider not just observation but small, intentional actions, plans that could guide the currents of curiosity, energy, and freedom among the Titans without disrupting their natural rhythm. Cronus thought carefully about the first gentle steps he could take. Perhaps he could create small opportunities for exploration, a hidden grove to discover, a smooth hill to climb, or a pool where the water shimmered invitingly. Each action would be subtle, almost imperceptible, yet it could shape the experience of his siblings, encouraging them to explore, to grow, and to move with confidence. The idea of influencing events without imposing himself felt both exciting and comforting, like a soft, steady current shaping the edge of a riverbank over time. He walked slowly among the valleys, letting his eyes wander over familiar hills and streams. Each place seemed to hold potential, small moments of guidance hidden in the folds of the land. Cronus imagined leading a sibling toward a gentle slope where the sunlight was warmest, allowing them to feel the soft caress of light on skin and the gentle pull of gravity on their movements. Or he could guide another to a quiet pool, where the ripples of water and reflection of the sky would offer both curiosity and calm. Even the tiniest choices, he realized, could ripple outward in ways that would shape the world quietly yet profoundly. As he wandered, he considered the subtle currents among the Titans themselves. Playful gestures, whispered questions, shared glances, all of these created threads that wove through the group. Cronus reflected on how one small action could spark another, how one gentle encouragement could awaken curiosity and confidence. If guided carefully, these threads could form patterns of growth and harmony that would ripple through the hills, valleys, and streams. He felt a soft anticipation, a quiet certainty that his patient care could influence these patterns without force. The afternoon sun began to lower, casting long, amber shadows across the hills. Cronus paused beside a narrow stream, kneeling to let the cool water flow through his fingers. The surface shimmered with light, ripples spreading gently around his touch. He traced patterns in the reflections, noticing how even the smallest disturbance could shift the flow. It reminded him that gentle action, carefully measured, could create subtle yet lasting change. He smiled softly to himself, feeling a quiet satisfaction in the thought that guidance could be so unobtrusive yet so powerful. Evening brought a calm hush across the land. The air carried the faint fragrance of flowers and warm stone, and the gentle murmur of streams harmonized with the distant rustle of leaves. Cronus walked slowly among his siblings, offering quiet words or gestures when needed. A gentle smile here, a patient nod there. Each small act was like a soft stitch in a tapestry, weaving harmony through the subtle currents of life. He noticed that his siblings began to move with more confidence, exploring freely while remaining aware of the steady presence guiding them. As twilight deepened, Cronus sat on a gentle slope overlooking a wide valley. The sun dipped below distant hills, painting the sky in soft shades of rose, amber, and violet. The streams reflected these colors, creating ribbons of light that flowed slowly across the stones. He watched his siblings as they moved through the hills and valleys, their laughter soft but growing, their movements steady and free. The first gentle patterns of change were becoming visible, like faint constellations forming in the night sky. Lying back on the soft grass, Cronus felt the pulse of the earth beneath him and the vast presence of Uranus above. The sky remained constant, vast, and unyielding, yet he no longer felt the pressure of its weight as sharply. He understood that subtle guidance could coexist with the immensity of the heavens, creating balance without confrontation. His first plans, small, patient, deliberate, were already taking effect, though the change was gradual, almost imperceptible. The stars emerged one by one, faint points of silver against the deepening blue of night. Cronus traced their patterns with his mind, reflecting on the quiet ways in which the world moved and shifted. Gaia's gentle voice reached him through the soil, reminding him of patience, observation, and careful action. Even the smallest touch can guide the course of many, she whispered. Careful hands and quiet mind shape the currents of life. Cronus allowed her words to settle within him, feeling a soft certainty that his careful plans were the right path forward. Night carried a hush over the hills and valleys. The soft rustle of leaves, the distant murmur of water, and the faint breathing of his siblings formed a gentle lullaby. Cronus lay on the grass, feeling the earth beneath him and the cool breeze on his skin, letting his thoughts drift slowly. He imagined the days ahead, filled with quiet exploration, gentle guidance, and subtle patterns of growth. Each step he would take, each small decision, could ripple outward, shaping curiosity, freedom, and harmony in ways that were calm, measured, and enduring. Even as sleep claimed him, Cronus held a soft resolve in his heart. That change could come gently, that freedom could flourish without force, and that careful observation, patience, and quiet action could shape the world over time. The first plans had been made, delicate and unassuming, ready to unfold in their own time like rivers flowing gently toward distant horizons. The quiet anticipation of what lay ahead lingered in his chest, like a small, steady flame, guiding him toward the choices that would one day shape the lives of his siblings and the unfolding of their world. The mornings felt slower now, as though the hills and valleys themselves were savoring the gentle sunlight. Each blade of grass glimmered with dew, each leaf swayed softly in the early breeze, and the streams murmured quietly over smooth stones. Cronus wandered along the slopes with careful steps, noticing the play of light and shadow, the soft fragrance of earth and blossoms, and the distant, faint laughter of his siblings. The world carried its familiar rhythm, but now he perceived subtle changes in its flow, small shifts he could influence without disturbing its calm. His first plans, though simple and quiet, were beginning to take effect. Titans who had once hesitated now lingered with curiosity in hidden groves or beside clear pools. They explored softly, their movements tentative but steadily more confident. Cronus observed each gesture with careful attention, noting how small nudges, an encouraging word, a gentle smile, a patient pause, could create ripples that spread quietly among the group. The currents of their energy were shifting, forming patterns of exploration and curiosity that he had only imagined days before. He followed a narrow path along a stream, letting the gentle ripple of water brush against the soles of his feet. The sunlight dappled the stones and reflected in soft gold and silver hues across the moving surface. Cronus paused and traced the water's edge with his fingers, feeling the coolness and smoothness of the stones beneath. He imagined how each small gesture he made could guide the stream of life around him, the way a carefully placed stone could redirect the flow without forcing it, or how the current itself could carve new paths over time. The Titans themselves began to respond in small, subtle ways. A young one who had lingered nervously at the edge of a pool now stepped into the water, letting the coolness brush against skin and laughing softly at the gentle ripples. Another climbed a small hill that had seemed too steep, encouraged only by the calm presence of Cronus nearby. Even in these minor shifts, the patterns of confidence and curiosity were taking root, and Cronus felt a quiet satisfaction in observing how his gentle guidance was allowing them to grow naturally. By midday, the sun bathed the valleys in warm light, casting long shadows that moved slowly across the hills. Cronus sat beneath a flowering tree, feeling the soft petals brush his arms when the wind shifted. The sweet fragrance filled the air, blending with the earthy scent of soil and moss. Here he considered his next subtle steps, how he might further encourage exploration, curiosity, and confidence among his siblings without imposing his will. Every plan was quiet, unassuming, and deliberate, designed to nurture rather than control. A few Titans wandered into his presence, drawn by curiosity rather than instruction. One touched the bark of the tree, marveling at its texture, while another bent to examine a small cluster of flowers at his feet. Cronus offered gentle observations, quietly pointing out the delicate veins of a leaf, the glimmer of sunlight on a dewdrop, or the faint patterns of shadow dancing across stones. His words were not commands, but invitations to notice, to explore, to become aware of the world in ways they had not considered before. Each tiny act of attention seemed to awaken a quiet joy within them, reinforcing the calm, harmonious currents he sought to foster. The soft rhythm of life continued into the afternoon. Cronus walked among the hills, observing streams that branched and converged, noticing how small actions could alter their paths without violent force. A Titan dropped a pebble into the water, and the resulting ripples spread outward, touching the surface of pools and stones downstream. Cronus watched carefully, noting how even minor disturbances could create gentle waves of change. He understood that guiding his siblings required this same patience. Small actions, carefully timed, would ripple through their lives in subtle but meaningful ways. Evening brought long shadows and a cool, comforting hush. Cronus found a quiet glade, the air scented faintly with blossoms and warm stone. He sat on a smooth rock, letting the warmth seep into his skin, and observed his siblings exploring nearby. They moved with more ease now, laughter soft but steady, gestures confident yet gentle. Even the hesitations that had marked their earlier movements had begun to fade, replaced by a quiet awareness and curiosity. Cronus smiled inwardly, feeling a deep satisfaction at the subtle patterns of growth taking root before his eyes. The stars began to appear, faint points of silver scattered across the darkening sky. Cronus lay on the grass, feeling the soft pulse of the earth beneath him and listening to the quiet murmur of streams and the rustle of leaves. The vast presence of Uranus above remained, constant and unyielding, yet the currents below seemed to move with their own gentle rhythm. He reflected on the delicate balance he was fostering, understanding that even the smallest act of guidance could shape the course of curiosity, freedom, and confidence among the Titans. A soft breeze brushed against his skin, carrying the faint scent of earth and flowers, and Gaia's quiet voice seemed to rise from beneath the soil. "Observe, Gaia. Hello? The currents will grow stronger with gentle hands," she whispered. Cronus let the words settle, feeling a profound calmness in his heart. The first deliberate patterns of influence were taking root, subtle and steady, and he felt the quiet anticipation of the ways they would continue to unfold in the days to come. As night deepened, the gentle murmurs of life surrounded him, the rustle of leaves, the faint call of distant creatures, the soft murmur of water moving through the valleys. Cronus lay beneath the stars, allowing himself to drift into sleep while holding a quiet certainty in his heart that careful observation, gentle guidance, and small, deliberate actions could shape the world without force, that freedom could flourish alongside patience and understanding, and that the currents of life, once guided with care, would ripple outward in ways both subtle and enduring. Even as his eyes closed, the faint stirrings of change continued quietly through the hills, valleys, and streams. The Titans explored with calm curiosity, their laughter soft and steady, their movements flowing with newfound confidence. The gentle currents of guidance Cronus had set in motion were beginning to take shape, preparing the way for future choices, discoveries, and the subtle shaping of their world. The mornings were slow and gentle, with soft light spilling over hills and valleys like warm honey. Dew clung to the grass and leaves, sparkling faintly as the sun rose higher. Cronus walked with unhurried steps through familiar slopes, feeling the cool earth beneath his feet and the subtle warmth of sunlight on his skin. Every sound was a thread in the quiet rhythm of the world: the rustle of leaves, the distant murmur of a stream, the soft laughter of siblings as they wandered through valleys and hills. The subtle patterns he had begun to shape were becoming more visible now. The Titans moved with a quiet confidence, exploring streams, groves, and hills with gentle curiosity. Hesitation still appeared occasionally, a hand hovering over a stone, a pause near a stream, but these moments were shorter, less frequent, and often resolved with soft laughter or a quiet smile. Cronus observed these movements carefully, noting how small acts of guidance had created gentle ripples, forming currents that flowed steadily through the group. One afternoon, he wandered to a narrow stream where sunlight reflected across the water in shifting patterns of gold and silver. He watched as one Titan, previously hesitant, now stepped confidently into the shallow water, letting the cool liquid swirl around her ankles. Another, who had lingered in a quiet grove, now climbed a gentle hill, pausing at the top to take in the view. Cronus felt a warmth of satisfaction at these small triumphs. The currents of curiosity and confidence he had nudged into motion were now beginning to move on their own, carrying his siblings forward gently, naturally. Cronus spent the afternoon moving among them with soft attentiveness, offering gentle words or calm gestures only when necessary. A careful observation here, a quiet encouragement there, and the natural rhythm of their movements flowed more freely. One sibling paused to watch a small bird hop along the stream. Another crouched to examine smooth stones polished by water. Cronus allowed them to discover, explore, and grow, intervening only when subtle guidance could enhance their curiosity or confidence. He noted the way these small moments began to influence one another. Laughter, curiosity, and gentle encouragement rippled quietly from one sibling to another, creating patterns that were slow, steady, and harmonious. A Titan discovering a hidden grove might spark the interest of another, who in turn would find delight in a nearby stream. Cronus traced these patterns silently, like a gardener observing the slow unfolding of blossoms, understanding that each quiet action contributed to the larger balance of life. The air carried a soft fragrance of blossoms and warm earth as he wandered along a sunlit hill. The gentle sway of tall grass brushed against his legs, the faint hum of insects rose softly from the soil, and the distant trickle of water filled the spaces between. Cronus paused for a moment, closing his eyes and letting the sensory details wash over him. It reminded him that patience and gentle guidance were often more powerful than force, that subtle influence could create lasting change if delivered with care. Evening approached, painting the valleys and hills in soft shades of amber, rose, and violet. Cronus found a quiet glade, the air fragrant with warm stone and flowering plants. He sat on a smooth rock, feeling its warmth seep gently into his skin, and watched his siblings exploring nearby. They moved with a newfound steadiness, curiosity lighting their eyes, and laughter spilling softly through the glades. The quiet patterns he had set into motion were blossoming naturally, and he felt a gentle pride in the unfolding harmony. As twilight deepened, Cronus lay on the soft grass, gazing at the emerging stars above. Each one shimmered faintly, a silver whisper against the vast blue sky. Uranus loomed steadily, vast and unyielding, yet Cronus no longer felt overwhelmed by its presence. He understood that even under the vastness of the heavens, small, deliberate acts of care could guide growth, curiosity, and freedom. Gaia's whispers reached him through the soil, gentle encouragement reminding him that subtle guidance was a quiet form of strength. The night carried its familiar hush. Streams murmured softly, leaves rustled in the breeze, and the faint breathing of his siblings mingled with the rhythms of the earth. Cronus held a gentle awareness in his heart. Each soft word, patient gesture, or careful observation contributed to the current of life he was shaping. The Titan's laughter and curiosity now flowed like a gentle river, no longer hesitant but steady, moving freely within the boundaries of patience and care he had quietly established. Cronus reflected on the slow blossoming of change. He had started with careful observation, then moved to gentle encouragement, and now the currents of curiosity, confidence, and harmony were beginning to guide themselves. Even small actions, he realized, could ripple outward, touching lives beyond the immediate moment, influencing not only individual choices but the collective rhythm of the group. It was a quiet triumph, not celebrated with loud words or dramatic acts, but felt in the steady, gentle unfolding of life around him. As sleep approached, Cronus felt a soft anticipation, like a small flame flickering in the depths of his chest. The currents he had shaped continued to move through the hills and valleys, guiding his siblings toward curiosity, exploration, and confidence without force or harshness. The gentle blossoming of change reassured him that patience, observation, and subtle guidance could shape the world over time. Even beneath the vast presence of Uranus, which stretched endlessly above the hills, Cronus felt a quiet power growing within him, a sense of readiness, patience, and understanding. The currents he had started were flowing gently, quietly, like streams carving paths through the valleys, preparing the world for the next stages of subtle growth. The night was calm, the stars twinkling softly overhead, and Cronus drifted into sleep with the certainty that gentle influence, care, and observation could continue to guide the unfolding of life in ways both enduring and beautiful. The mornings arrived quietly, with soft light filtering through the mist that lingered across the hills. The air was cool and moist, carrying the subtle scent of earth, moss, and early blooms. Streams wound lazily through the valleys, reflecting the pale glow of the rising sun. Cronus walked slowly along a familiar path, feeling the smooth stones beneath his feet, the gentle touch of grass brushing his legs, and the faint warmth of sunlight as it spilled across the hills. Each step was deliberate, mindful, as if he were moving not only through space but through time itself, tracing the subtle currents of life around him. His siblings, the Titans, were more at ease now. Hesitations had softened further, replaced by quiet curiosity and playful exploration. Small ripples of laughter moved through the hills, harmonizing with the gentle hum of streams and the rustle of leaves. Cronus observed these changes with care, noting how minor guidance, an encouraging word, a subtle gesture, or the calm steadiness of his presence had created patterns of movement and attention. He understood that these currents could be nurtured further, allowing the Titans to explore freely while remaining harmonized under his watchful, gentle influence. One morning, he paused beside a broad river where water flowed slowly over smooth stones. He traced the ripples with his fingers, feeling the subtle pull of the current. Just as the flow of water shaped stones gradually, he realized, so too could small, consistent actions shape behavior and understanding over time. He watched as his siblings stepped cautiously into the shallow water, the coolness brushing their ankles, then laughed softly at the ripples spreading outward. Another wandered to a sun-dappled grove, fascinated by the patterns of light through the leaves. Cronus felt a quiet warmth in his chest. These moments were small, yet they carried the gentle power of change. The day continued with subtle observation. Cronus wandered among hills and valleys, noting which areas sparked curiosity and which inspired caution. One slope held a gentle incline perfect for discovery. A hidden glade revealed the faint scent of blossoms carried by a soft breeze. He considered how these natural features could guide his siblings toward confidence, exploration, and quiet joy. Each step he planned was careful, designed to harmonize with their innate curiosity rather than impose upon it. Afternoon light bathed the world in soft gold, and Cronus found himself on a quiet hilltop. The air smelled faintly of warm stone and moss, the gentle sway of grass brushing against his hands as he sat. He watched as his siblings moved below, their laughter soft, their movements confident yet measured. Some paused to examine stones polished smooth by the river. Others tilted their heads to listen to the faint murmur of distant water. The quiet currents of influence he had set into motion were taking shape more clearly now, flowing gently through the group like streams converging toward a river. Cronus reflected on Uranus, the vast sky that stretched endlessly above. Its presence was constant and immense, yet he no longer felt the weight as a burden. Instead, he observed how the Titan siblings responded to its quiet dominance. Hesitation here, curiosity there, moments of wonder and pause. He understood that the influence of Uranus could not be removed, but the careful guidance of his own actions could harmonize the currents of behavior beneath it. In subtle ways, he could help the Titans navigate pressures they could sense but not fully comprehend, shaping calmness, confidence, and curiosity along the way. Evening brought a gentle hush over the valleys. Sunlight faded to soft amber and rose, shadows stretching slowly across the hills. Cronus wandered along a familiar grove, noting the small discoveries of his siblings: a smooth stone shaped by water, a delicate leaf catching the fading light, a hidden insect moving across the soil. He allowed these moments to unfold naturally, offering quiet guidance only when necessary. A patient smile, a gentle word, or small gesture was all that was required. The patterns beneath the surface were forming more fully, like the weaving of threads into a tapestry of subtle confidence and quiet exploration. Night arrived slowly, carrying a soft breeze scented with blossoms and warm earth. The murmuring of streams, the faint rustle of leaves, and the gentle breathing of the Titans blended into a soothing lullaby. Cronus lay on the soft grass, feeling the pulse of the earth beneath him, the cool brush of air across his skin, and the steady presence of Uranus above. Gaia's gentle whispers reached him through the soil, reminding him of the quiet power of observation, patience, and subtle guidance. "Even the smallest currents can shape the course of rivers," she murmured. Cronus felt these words settle deeply within him, a quiet affirmation of the path he was shaping. He considered how small actions, repeated patiently and deliberately, could ripple through the hills and valleys. One Titan's curiosity might inspire another. A moment of confidence could spark courage elsewhere. The gentle currents of life, once carefully guided, could continue to flow freely without force, creating patterns of harmony that would endure beyond the present. Cronus recognized that this subtle weaving of influence was perhaps the most powerful act he could perform, not through dominance, but through careful attention, patience, and presence. As the stars began to appear, twinkling faintly against the deepening blue, Cronus felt a soft anticipation in his chest. The currents he had nurtured were now fully moving on their own, carrying his siblings toward exploration, confidence, and quiet joy. Even beneath the immensity of Uranus, he knew that patient guidance and gentle observation could harmonize the currents of life, creating a delicate balance between freedom and care. Sleep came gradually, wrapping the hills and valleys in a soft quiet. Cronus lay beneath the vast, endless sky, holding a gentle certainty in his heart that the currents of influence he had begun to shape would continue quietly, subtly, and enduringly. The Titans moved through their world with curiosity and confidence, their laughter soft and steady, their explorations unhindered yet guided. The patterns beneath the sky were blossoming, preparing the way for the next stages of gentle growth, subtle understanding, and quiet discovery. Even as his eyes closed, Cronus felt the soft, steady pulse of life beneath him. The rivers, the hills, the grass, the flowing currents of his siblings' energy. The world moved quietly, gently, and he was ready to continue shaping its currents with calm, patient hands, guiding the unfolding of life one deliberate, subtle step at a time. The mornings began with a quiet hush, soft light spilling over the hills and valleys in gentle waves. Dew clung to each blade of grass, shimmering faintly in the rising sun, and the air carried the subtle scent of earth and early blooms. Cronus walked slowly along a familiar slope, his bare feet brushing against soft moss and smooth stones. Every step felt deliberate, like a careful measurement of time and space, as if he were tracing the gentle pulse of life that flowed through the hills. Though the currents of confidence and curiosity among the Titans had grown stronger, Cronus began to notice faint disturbances, like ripples in an otherwise calm pond. A sibling hesitated longer at the edge of a stream than usual, glancing upward toward the vast expanse of Uranus with a flicker of unease. Another paused midway up a sunlit hill, shifting from one foot to another as if unsure of the next step. The subtle hesitations were not loud or alarming, but they tugged gently at the currents Cronus had so carefully nurtured. He knelt beside a small pool, letting the cool water swirl through his fingers, tracing the delicate ripples. Each ripple mirrored the slight disturbances among the Titans, small, almost imperceptible shifts in behavior that could grow if left unobserved. Cronus inhaled deeply, savoring the earthy scent of stone and soil, and considered the quiet patterns unfolding. Change, he realized, was not always smooth or predictable. Even in calmness, subtle tensions could appear, gentle but persistent, like faint whispers carried on the breeze. The day stretched slowly, sunlight warming the hills in soft gold. Cronus wandered among his siblings, noting how these minor hesitations influenced their interactions. A Titan who had been bold in exploring a grove now lingered uncertainly by the trees, while another who had recently discovered a smooth hill seemed unsure whether to climb or rest. Cronus moved gently, offering quiet encouragement, an observing glance, a soft smile, a subtle gesture toward the path ahead. Each small intervention felt like a pebble placed carefully in a stream, redirecting flow without force. He noticed patterns within the disturbances themselves. They often appeared in moments when curiosity met uncertainty, when a Titan wanted to explore but sensed the vastness of Uranus above, or when one's own hesitation rippled into another's actions. These whispers of doubt were not dangerous. They were natural. Yet Cronus understood that careful attention will be required to maintain the harmony he had cultivated. He considered subtle adjustments, a quiet word, a guiding hand, or simply standing nearby to provide the invisible reassurance that exploration could continue safely. Afternoon light painted the valleys with warm hues of amber and rose. Cronus rested by a smooth stone on a gentle slope, the soft grass brushing against his arms and the distant hum of water filling the air. He watched as his siblings explored quietly, noting the small tremors of hesitation and the ways gentle guidance could restore confidence. One Titan lingered at a flowering bush, unsure whether to move closer. Cronus knelt nearby, tracing the curve of a leaf with his finger and offering a soft, calm observation. "See how it catches the sunlight," he said quietly. The Titan looked, nodded, and stepped closer, the hesitation melting into quiet curiosity. The world around him seemed alive with whispers. Leaves trembled in a soft breeze, the murmur of water shifted gently over smooth stones, and the faint scent of blossoms mingled with warm earth. Even the birds carried soft calls that echoed across the hills, tiny ripples in the calm rhythm of life. Cronus reflected that these quiet disturbances were part of the natural flow, not obstacles to be removed, but currents to be understood and harmonized. Every hesitation, every soft pause, could be observed and guided gently, like a hand tracing the flow of water without altering its course too sharply. As evening approached, the shadows stretched slowly across the valleys, and the warm light faded to soft amber and violet. Cronus wandered through a hidden grove, letting his siblings move freely while maintaining his quiet presence nearby. He observed small moments of discovery, a Titan touching the smooth bark of a tree, another noticing the shimmer of sunlight on a pebble, a soft laugh exchanged between two siblings as they explored together. These small, gentle interactions carried immense potential, shaping confidence and curiosity while balancing the faint tensions that lingered in their movements. Night fell gradually, wrapping the hills and valleys in a soft hush. Stars began to shimmer faintly, silver points against the deepening blue, and the vast presence of Uranus loomed silently above. Cronus lay on the soft grass, feeling the cool earth beneath him and the gentle caress of a breeze on his skin. Gaia's whispers reached him through the soil, urging patience and careful observation. "Even the smallest stirrings carry meaning," she murmured. "Guide gently, and the currents will flow in harmony." Cronus reflected on the disturbances he had observed. They were subtle, quiet, and fleeting, yet they reveal that growth and curiosity were never linear. Hesitation and uncertainty were part of the rhythm of life, and understanding them allowed him to refine his guidance. He realized that his role was not to remove these ripples, but to harmonize them, to provide gentle reassurance, subtle encouragement, and calm presence so that confidence could emerge naturally. As sleep approached, the Titans moved quietly through the hills and valleys, their laughter softer, their curiosity tempered by subtle awareness. Cronus held a calm certainty in his heart. The currents he had nurtured were alive, even amidst whispers of doubt. The gentle disturbances would not disrupt their growth. They would only guide it more deliberately, encouraging reflection, awareness, and resilience. Even beneath the vastness of Uranus, with its quiet dominance stretching endlessly above the world, Cronus felt a steady power growing within him, a sense of patience, understanding, and careful influence. The whispers of disturbance were now part of the tapestry he was weaving, subtle threads interlacing with those of curiosity, confidence, and quiet exploration. Sleep embraced him gently, and the hills, valleys, and streams remained calm, carrying the quiet ripples of life onward, preparing the world for the careful shaping that lay ahead. The morning arrived quietly, with soft light spilling over the hills and valleys, bathing everything in warm, golden tones. Dew glimmered faintly on leaves and blades of grass, and the subtle scent of earth and flowers carried lightly through the air. Streams moved lazily through the valleys, whispering softly as they passed over smooth stones. Cronus walked along a familiar path, feeling the gentle give of moss beneath his feet and the warmth of sunlight brushing against his skin. Each step was deliberate, a quiet rhythm that mirrored the calm flow of life around him. The disturbances he had observed in the previous days, hesitations, faint uncertainties, had not disappeared, but Cronus could now perceive the patterns more clearly. He noticed that moments of pause often coincided with opportunities for deeper exploration, a stream to examine, a hill to climb, or a grove to enter. The subtle hesitations were not obstacles but markers, gentle reminders of where attention or guidance might be offered. Cronus understood that these ripples could be harmonized, not forced, and he considered carefully how best to do so. He wandered slowly through a sunlit grove, where leaves shimmered with the soft light of morning. A titan lingered by a cluster of flowering shrubs, unsure whether to step closer. Cronus approached quietly, crouching beside a smooth stone and letting his presence be felt without speaking. "See how the sunlight dances on the petals," he whispered gently. The titan's gaze followed his finger, noticing the intricate shimmer, and a quiet smile appeared. Hesitation gave way to gentle curiosity, and the ripple of calm confidence spread slowly through the grove. Afternoon light bathed the hills in soft amber and rose, and Cronus moved among his siblings, observing and subtly guiding. One climbed a gentle slope, pausing occasionally to rest, while another traced the edge of a stream with careful fingers, feeling the cool water and watching ripples spread. Cronus allowed them space to explore freely, stepping in only with a calm word or a guiding gesture when needed. Each subtle intervention felt like tuning a delicate instrument, adjusting the currents of curiosity, attention, and confidence until they flowed harmoniously. He reflected on the way small disturbances could create growth. A moment of hesitation often led to deeper awareness. A cautious step revealed hidden beauty, and gentle guidance allowed confidence to emerge naturally. Cronus understood that the currents of life were complex, weaving together curiosity, uncertainty, and exploration. By harmonizing the ripples rather than suppressing them, he could guide the flow of growth in ways that were enduring, gentle, and beautiful. As the sun dipped lower, painting the valleys with long, soft shadows, Cronus paused by a pool where the water reflected the fading light. One titan lingered at the edge, unsure of whether to step in. Cronus knelt nearby, letting the quiet warmth of his presence serve as reassurance. "Feel the water," he said softly, and as the titan dipped a hand into the cool liquid, the ripples spread outward, touching the surface of the pool in soft patterns. Confidence grew slowly, spreading from one sibling to another like gentle waves across a calm lake. Evening brought a hush across the hills, the air filled with the faint scent of flowers, warm stone, and moist earth. Cronus wandered along a winding path, observing subtle interactions between his siblings. One shared a soft laugh with another, while another paused to examine smooth stones polished by water. These small, quiet moments carried profound significance. The currents of confidence, curiosity, and gentle exploration were weaving together, creating a harmonious rhythm throughout the valleys and groves. The vast presence of Uranus stretched overhead, calm and unyielding. Cronus observed the influence of the sky with quiet awareness, noting how the immensity of its presence could inspire hesitation but also wonder. He reflected that harmonizing these subtle ripples required sensitivity, patience, and careful attention to the interplay between curiosity and uncertainty. Even beneath such a vast expanse, small actions, repeated carefully, could create lasting patterns of balance. Night descended softly, the sky painted in deep shades of violet and indigo, stars shimmering faintly like scattered silver dust. Cronus lay on soft grass, feeling the gentle pulse of the earth beneath him, listening to the quiet murmur of streams and the rustle of leaves. Gaia's whispers rose faintly from the soil, encouraging him to continue observing, guiding, and harmonizing the currents of life around him. "Even the smallest ripple can shape the whole stream," she murmured. Cronus allowed her words to settle, filling him with calm certainty. He thought of the subtle victories of the day. The hesitant step transformed into curiosity, the moment of doubt into confidence, the small hesitation into a quiet exploration. Each ripple of uncertainty he had observed and harmonized had contributed to the larger currents of growth among the Titans. The quiet blossoming of their confidence and curiosity felt like the gentle unfolding of petals, delicate but enduring. Even beneath the vast and constant presence of Uranus, the currents Cronus nurtured moved steadily, flowing freely but guided gently, like streams tracing their paths through valleys and hills. Sleep approached, wrapping the land in calm, and Cronus felt a quiet satisfaction in the harmony he was fostering. The ripples of hesitation, curiosity, and confidence were now woven into a subtle, enduring rhythm, ready to carry forward into the days to come. As he closed his eyes, the gentle murmurs of life surrounded him, the streams, the rustling leaves, the soft breathing of his siblings, and the faint glimmer of stars above. The world was calm, balanced, and alive with the quiet, enduring currents that Cronus had carefully harmonized. Sleep took him gently, carrying with it the promise of continued growth, soft exploration, and the steady unfolding of life in gentle, harmonious patterns. Morning arrived with a gentle hush. Soft lights spilled over the hills, brushing the valleys in pale gold. Dew clung to the blades of grass, sparkling faintly as the sun climbed higher. Cronus wandered slowly through the hills, feeling the soft give of moss beneath his feet and the warmth of sunlight along his skin. Each step felt deliberate, a quiet rhythm that mirrored the gentle pulse of life around him. The subtle currents he had nurtured among the Titans were now becoming stronger, more visible. Hesitations and uncertainties still appeared, but they were smaller, quieter, and increasingly fleeting. Titans who had paused at streams or hidden groves now moved with soft confidence, exploring the world with gentle curiosity. Cronus observed these changes with calm satisfaction, noting the quiet harmony that was beginning to unfold among his siblings. One morning, he found a Titan perched atop a small hill, surveying the valley below. The view stretched wide, hills rolling softly into distant horizons, streams glinting faintly in the sunlight. The Titan's eyes were wide with quiet wonder, and for a moment Cronus simply watched, allowing the feeling to settle over the sibling. He noticed the subtle shift in posture, the small ease of breath, the gentle straightening of the shoulders. Independence, he realized, often began with these quiet moments of confidence and reflection. Afternoon light warmed the valleys, and Cronus wandered through a sun-dappled grove. Siblings explored freely now, moving with gentle curiosity rather than hesitation. One traced the curve of a stream with careful fingers, feeling the cool water swirl softly around stones. Another leaned against a smooth tree trunk, listening to the faint hum of wind through leaves, smiling quietly at the patterns of sunlight. Cronus allowed these moments to continue, stepping in only when a gentle gesture or word might deepen the sense of confidence or curiosity. He observed how small acts of guidance had rippled into independence. A Titan who had once hesitated before approaching a hill now climbed with ease, pausing only to appreciate the view. Another had moved cautiously at the edge of a stream, but now she stepped deliberately into the cool water, delighting in the ripples spreading outward. Cronus felt a quiet warmth in his chest. The currents he had shaped were no longer dependent on his presence alone. They were moving with a gentle, self-directed energy. As the sun began to lower, painting the valleys in soft amber and rose, Cronus sat on a smooth rock beside a quiet pool. He watched as one Titan leaned over to examine a small flower floating on the surface, turning it gently to see its delicate patterns. Another tilted a stone, observing the way sunlight reflected across its polished surface. These small, mindful actions spoke of growing independence, the quiet curiosity that had been nurtured carefully now blossoming naturally. Even the faint disturbances he had observed in previous days had begun to harmonize with the currents of confidence and exploration. Moments of hesitation now acted as gentle pauses rather than obstacles, allowing reflection and deeper awareness. Cronus realized that independence was not the absence of doubt but the ability to navigate uncertainty with calmness and curiosity. Each sibling was learning to move within the world with subtle assurance, their explorations guided by intuition as much as by his gentle influence. Evening brought a soft hush across the hills. Streams whispered over stones, leaves rustled in a faint breeze, and the air carried the scent of earth, flowers, and warm stone. Cronus wandered along a narrow path, observing small interactions, a Titan sharing a soft laugh with another, a curious gaze following the flight of a bird, a gentle touch tracing the pattern of a leaf. Each moment reflected the growing independence he had nurtured, small acts of exploration and awareness that were quietly self-directed. The vast presence of Uranus stretched above, calm and unyielding. Cronus felt the quiet interplay between the immensity of the sky and the growing confidence of his siblings. Independence did not require the removal of Uranus, but the harmonization of their actions beneath it. The Titans were learning to move freely, confidently, and carefully, even under its vast gaze. Cronus recognized that this subtle mastery, the ability to act with awareness and calm, was triumph of gentle guidance and patient care. Night fell softly, stars emerging one by one, faint silver points against the deepening blue. Cronus lay on the soft grass, feeling the pulse of the earth beneath him and listening to the quiet murmurs of life around him. Streams, leaves, and the soft breathing of his siblings blended into a soothing lullaby. Gaia's voice reached him faintly through the soil, whispering encouragement and affirmation. Independence grows in quiet moments, nurtured by gentle hands and patient hearts. Cronus reflected on the day's subtle victories. The currents he had nurtured, curiosity, confidence, and gentle exploration, were now beginning to flow independently among the Titans. Hesitations had become brief pauses. Uncertainties had transformed into opportunities for reflection. Gentle guidance had blossomed into self-directed awareness. Sleep approached, wrapping the hills and valleys in a soft, comforting hush. As he closed his eyes, the gentle currents of life continued to move through the hills, valleys, streams, and groves. The Titans explored quietly, with curiosity and confidence, their laughter soft, their actions deliberate, their independence growing naturally. Cronus felt a deep, calming satisfaction. The currents he had nurtured were no longer fragile. They had begun to flourish, moving with quiet strength and subtle grace, carrying the promise of continued growth, calm exploration, and harmonious living beneath the vast and unyielding sky. Morning unfolded quietly, with soft light spilling across the valleys, turning dew-laden grass into shimmering threads of silver and gold. The air carried the gentle scent of earth, blossoms, and warm stone. Cronus walked slowly along a familiar slope, feeling the moss and cool soil beneath his feet. Each step was deliberate, a quiet rhythm that mirrored the currents of life flowing through the hills. The growing independence of his siblings had created a gentle harmony, yet Cronus sensed subtler patterns emerging beneath the surface. Small hesitations, faint uncertainties, and soft pauses appeared less frequently, but when they did, they carried meaning. He observed how one Titan's brief doubt might influence another, like a pebble causing ripples across a calm pond. These subtle currents were not disruptions. They were threads, woven into the tapestry of behavior, curiosity, and confidence. Cronus knew that understanding them required patience, attentiveness, and gentle guidance. He wandered to a quiet grove where sunlight filtered softly through the leaves. One sibling paused at the edge of a stream, the cool water rippling gently around stones. Another lingered near a flowering shrub, curiosity tugging at their attention, but uncertainty holding them back. Cronus approached quietly, kneeling beside a smooth rock and offering a calm presence rather than words. A subtle gesture toward the stream, a quiet shift of position, and the hesitations began to dissolve. The currents flowed more smoothly again, naturally, without force or urgency. Afternoon warmed the valleys in soft amber and rose, and Cronus observed deeper interactions among the Titans. Their growing independence allowed subtle patterns to emerge, shared curiosity, gentle encouragement, and quiet reflection. A sibling who had once hesitated to climb a hill now paused briefly at the top, appreciating the view, and then helping another climb with a calm, guiding hand. Another observed the delicate patterns of sunlight on a leaf and shared the wonder with a companion. These moments reflected a harmony that was both self-directed and gently supported by Cronus's careful influence. He noted the faint disturbances still appearing occasionally. A hesitant step, a small glance toward the vast sky of Uranus, a quiet pause before exploration. All these whispers held meaning. Cronus understood that these subtle ripples were opportunities to guide, to harmonize, and to nurture long-term confidence. Each gentle intervention required observation and patience, a touch of guidance that allowed curiosity and reflection to flourish naturally. By late afternoon, Cronus rested beside a calm pool, the surface reflecting the soft colors of the fading sun. The air carried the faint hum of streams, the rustle of leaves, and the delicate scent of blossoms and warm earth. He watched as his siblings explored freely, their movements measured but confident, their interactions gentle and curious. Moments of hesitation had transformed into opportunities for reflection and growth, weaving subtle, enduring patterns in the currents of behavior. The vast presence of Uranus stretched above, quiet and unyielding. Cronus felt no fear, only awareness of its influence. Beneath its immense gaze, the Titans were learning to navigate curiosity, confidence, and uncertainty with gentle care. Cronus reflected on the importance of subtlety, how the smallest gesture, the softest word, the patient observation could shape long-term harmony without force. These were the threads that wove the fabric of calm, enduring growth. Evening brought a quiet hush over the hills, valleys, and streams. The soft light of sunset bathed the landscape in amber, rose, and violet. Cronus walked along a familiar path, observing the small, self-directed actions of his siblings, a Titan examining a smooth stone, another leaning gently against a tree, a soft laugh shared quietly among companions. The gentle ripples of curiosity and confidence moved through the group, flowing steadily, independently, yet harmonized by his careful guidance. Night fell, stars shimmering faintly against the deepening blue of the sky. Cronus lay on the soft grass, feeling the pulse of the earth beneath him and the faint caress of a cool breeze on his skin. The murmurs of streams, the rustle of leaves, and the quiet breathing of his siblings created a soothing lullaby. Gaia's whispers reached him softly through the soil. Observe, harmonize, and allow the currents to flow. Patience shapes the strongest rivers. Cronus reflected on the day. The currents of life, confidence, curiosity, reflection, were moving with subtle independence, yet he remained attentive to the finer patterns beneath the surface. The faint disturbances were now threads of growth, small reminders that even gentle guidance required awareness and care. Sleep approached, wrapping the hills, valleys, and streams in calm, and Cronus felt a quiet satisfaction. The patterns he had nurtured were steady, harmonious, and ready to continue growing in subtle, enduring ways. As he closed his eyes, the currents continued to flow quietly beneath the soft hush of night. The streams, the gentle rustle of leaves, the soft movements of his siblings exploring with confidence and curiosity. Even beneath the vast, quiet presence of Uranus, the patterns Cronus had woven carried the promise of continued growth, reflection, and gentle exploration. Sleep came, and the hills, valleys, and streams rested in the calm, enduring harmony of carefully nurtured currents. Morning unfolded slowly, wrapped in soft gold light spilling over the hills and valleys. Dew clung to the grass, sparkling faintly as the sun rose. The air carried a delicate mix of earth, flowers, and warm stone. Cronus walked along a familiar slope, the soft moss and soil beneath his feet grounding him in the quiet rhythm of the world. Each step was deliberate, slow, allowing him to feel the pulse of life around him, the gentle currents of energy flowing through the hills, streams, and groves. The independence he had nurtured in his siblings continued to grow, yet Cronus began to notice subtler shifts beneath the surface. Small glances exchanged between siblings, brief hesitations, quiet smiles, and soft laughs. These seemingly minor moments carried meaning. They were threads of connection, subtle shifts that reveal the interwoven patterns of curiosity, confidence, and emerging awareness. Cronus understood that the world beneath Uranus was alive not only with action but with interaction, and that these small movements could shape the rhythm of growth in profound ways. He wandered to a gentle slope where a narrow stream curved lazily through the valley. One sibling knelt at the edge, tracing ripples in the water with careful fingers. Another approached, pausing briefly, then joined in, both observing the patterns reflected in the sunlight on the surface. Cronus stood quietly nearby, watching the gentle interplay, noting the way curiosity and subtle collaboration flowed naturally. The currents he had nurtured were now beginning to interact with one another, creating soft, interdependent movements among the Titans. Afternoon light warmed the hills in shades of amber and rose. Cronus walked along a sun-dappled grove, observing siblings exploring freely. One tilted a smooth stone to watch the sunlight refract, while another crouched to observe the delicate wings of an insect. A quiet laugh passed between them, a soft exchange of wonder and delight. These small interactions were subtle shifts in the currents he had nurtured, the independence of each Titan now interacting harmoniously with the awareness and curiosity of others. Cronus felt a gentle warmth in his chest, realizing that the world he had shaped was beginning to move with its own rhythm. He reflected on the faint disturbances that still appeared occasionally, a hesitant step, a paused glance toward the vast expanse of Uranus, a subtle uncertainty in movement. These were no longer interruptions. They had become part of the larger patterns, threads woven into the currents of exploration and growth. Cronus understood that his role had evolved, not only guiding and harmonizing, but observing the interactions between currents, noticing how small ripples could gently shape the broader flow of life. By late afternoon, Cronus rested near a calm pool, its surface reflecting the soft light of the sun. He watched as one sibling moved confidently across the stones, pausing to help another balance, while another crouched to observe patterns in a floating leaf. The currents of independence, confidence, and curiosity were weaving together in subtle interconnections, moving through the group like a gentle network of influence. Cronus allowed himself to simply observe, feeling the calm satisfaction of watching harmony unfold naturally. Evening fell quietly, painting the world in soft amber and violet hues. Streams murmured over smooth stones, leaves rustled gently in the breeze, and the faint fragrance of blossoms mixed with warm earth. Cronus wandered along a familiar path, noting the small ways in which his siblings' interactions had shifted. A soft laugh exchanged, a gentle word spoken, a shared glance of wonder. The subtle shifts were not loud or dramatic, yet they carried significance, a quiet dance of interconnection and harmony. Above, the vast expanse of Uranus stretched silently, constant and unyielding. Cronus felt its presence not as a weight, but as a backdrop against which the currents of life beneath it could move freely. He reflected on the delicate balance of influence, the Titan's independence, the subtle guidance he offered, the gentle interactions between siblings, all intertwined to create a rhythm that was steady, harmonious, and enduring. Night arrived slowly, stars emerging like tiny silver sparks across the deepening blue sky. Cronus lay on the soft grass, feeling the pulse of the earth beneath him, listening to the murmuring streams and the faint breathing of his siblings. Gaia's whispers rose through the soil, soft and steady. Observe the subtle shifts, and the currents will guide themselves. Harmony grows in quiet awareness. Cronus considered the day's gentle victories. The currents he had nurtured were no longer solitary flows of curiosity or confidence. They were interwoven, creating quiet, enduring connections among the Titans. Subtle shifts, small interactions, and shared moments of wonder were forming a delicate web of harmony. Sleep approached, wrapping the hills, valleys, and streams in calm, and Cronus felt the quiet satisfaction of observing growth unfold naturally. As he closed his eyes, the soft currents of life continued their gentle motion, streams flowing, leaves rustling, siblings moving with quiet curiosity and awareness. Even beneath the vast and unyielding Uranus, the threads of connection he had nurtured were intertwining, creating patterns of subtle harmony, gentle exploration, and enduring calm. Sleep came, carrying with it the promise of continued growth, quiet interconnection, and the slow unfolding of life's gentle rhythm. Morning arrived with soft gold light spilling across the valleys, brushing hills and streams in gentle warmth. The air was cool and fragrant, carrying the subtle scent of earth, blossoms, and warm stone. Cronus walked slowly along a familiar path, feeling the soft moss beneath his feet and the slight give of damp soil. Each step was deliberate, a quiet rhythm echoing the currents of life flowing gently through the hills, groves, and streams. The Titans moved with increasing ease and curiosity, their independence weaving together in subtle interactions that Cronus had begun to notice more fully. Small exchanges, a glance, a smile, a quiet laugh, hinted at deeper connections forming among them. It was as if invisible threads linked their curiosity and confidence, creating a gentle network of understanding and shared discovery. Cronus observed quietly, sensing the delicate balance of these subtle connections, and considered how he might harmonize them further without disrupting the natural flow. He wandered to a gentle hill where sunlight spilled in golden pools among the grass and wildflowers. One sibling paused to examine a patch of dew-drenched petals, while another approached, curiosity tugging gently at their attention. Cronus stood nearby, observing the quiet interplay, noting how the movements of one influenced the other in small, harmonious ways. He realized that these subtle connections, once nurtured carefully, could guide confidence, curiosity, and reflection across the entire group. Afternoon light warmed the valleys in amber and rose. Cronus moved through a grove where streams curved lazily among smooth stones and flowering shrubs. He observed siblings sharing small discoveries. One tilted a pebble to see the sunlight refract, another crouched to watch the delicate wings of an insect, and yet another paused to listen to the soft hum of the water over stones. Each interaction, however quiet, created a ripple that reached beyond the immediate moment, linking curiosity, observation, and subtle awareness. Cronus felt a soft warmth in his chest, witnessing the gentle network of connection taking shape. He noted the faint traces of hesitation that still appeared occasionally, a momentary pause before climbing a hill, a brief glance at Uranus overhead, a soft hesitation near a pool. These small ripples were no longer distractions but part of the larger web. Cronus reflected that even slight uncertainties could strengthen the network, giving space for reflection and awareness while allowing confidence to emerge naturally. Each subtle intervention, each quiet presence, helped harmonize the growing interconnections. By late afternoon, Cronus rested beside a calm stream where water shimmered like liquid silver. One sibling traced ripples with careful fingers, while another leaned over to observe the patterns forming. Their quiet curiosity, shared and reflected between them, carried a gentle energy that flowed seamlessly through the group. Cronus observed these connections with patience, understanding that each interaction, however small, strengthened the subtle web linking independence, reflection, and mutual curiosity. Evening arrived softly, casting long shadows across the valleys and groves. The streams murmured over smooth stones, leaves rustled in a faint breeze, and the air carried the gentle fragrance of blossoms and warm earth. Cronus wandered along a familiar path, observing how his siblings' interactions had deepened. Shared glances of wonder, soft laughter, gentle guidance extended naturally from one sibling to another. These subtle movements were now forming a delicate, harmonious pattern. Above, Uranus stretched endlessly, silent and constant. Cronus felt its presence not as a weight but as a backdrop against which the currents of connection could flow freely. The Titan's independence, combined with the subtle guidance he offered, created a network of calm, mutual awareness. Cronus reflected on the power of gentle observation and patient intervention. Even the smallest gesture or quiet word could ripple through the web, harmonizing the currents of life and shaping enduring patterns of growth. Night fell gradually, stars emerging like silver sparks scattered across deep indigo. Cronus lay on soft grass, feeling the pulse of the earth beneath him and listening to the streams, the rustle of leaves, and the gentle breathing of his siblings. Gaia's whispers rose faintly through the soil. Observe connections. Harmonize gently. Let the currents flow freely. Cronus allowed her words to settle, a quiet affirmation of the web of relationships he was nurturing. He reflected on the day. The currents of curiosity, confidence, and reflection were now interwoven into a subtle network among the Titans. Hesitations had become gentle pauses. Quiet explorations had rippled outward, linking siblings through shared wonder and mutual discovery. The patterns were delicate, harmonious, and enduring, a quiet tapestry beneath the vast expanse of Uranus. As he closed his eyes, the currents continued their gentle motion, streams flowing, leaves rustling, siblings exploring with confidence and curiosity, the threads of connection humming softly beneath the calm hush of night. Sleep came slowly, wrapping the hills, valleys, and streams in gentle stillness, carrying with it the promise of continued harmony, subtle interconnection, and the steady unfolding of life's quiet rhythm. Morning arrived with soft, golden light spilling gently over the hills, streams, and valleys. Dew clung to the grass like tiny jewels, glimmering faintly in the warmth of the rising sun. The air carried a soft fragrance of earth and blossoms, mingling with the faint warmth of smooth stones underfoot. Cronus moved slowly along a familiar path, feeling the moss and soil give gently beneath each step, grounding him in the quiet rhythm of the world. Every step was deliberate, a soft meditation in motion, a way of sensing the subtle currents of life around him. The Titans moved with quiet confidence, their curiosity flowing freely across the valleys and groves. Yet Cronus noticed faint new shifts in the currents beneath them. Small hesitations had returned in places that had seemed settled. A sibling paused longer at the edge of a stream, tilting a pebble carefully to see the sunlight refract across its surface. Another lingered beneath a tree, brushing fingers over leaves with a soft, uncertain touch, glancing toward Uranus overhead as if sensing something beyond their understanding. These subtle changes did not alarm Cronus. They intrigued him. They were gentle whispers of the natural ebb and flow of growth, small reminders that even the most steady currents could shift. He wandered to a quiet grove where sunlight filtered through branches in soft golden patterns. The air carried the faint rustle of leaves, the distant murmur of a stream, and the subtle scent of warm earth. A sibling crouched beside a flowering bush, tracing petals with a delicate finger, while another approached, observing with a mixture of curiosity and uncertainty. Cronus knelt nearby, noticing the faint tremor of hesitation that lingered. He did not speak immediately, instead allowing the currents to move, observing how subtle guidance could flow naturally into confidence. Afternoon light bathed the hills in soft amber, highlighting gentle slopes and quiet pools of water. Cronus watched as the siblings explored freely, their movements now more fluid but occasionally punctuated by small pauses or reflective glances. He saw how these tiny hesitations could ripple outward, influencing companions in subtle ways. One sibling hesitated at the edge of a hill, glancing down at the soft moss beneath their feet, and another, observing quietly, mirrored the pause before proceeding. Cronus recognized the delicate balance required. Too much intervention could disrupt the natural rhythm, while too little could allow uncertainty to grow unnoticed. He reflected on the importance of patience. These subtle disturbances were not obstacles. They were natural signals, gentle invitations to guide and harmonize. Cronus moved quietly among the hills, streams, and groves, offering only the softest gestures of reassurance. A hand hovering near a shoulder, a nod toward a path. A gentle word meant more as an echo than a directive. Each subtle touch, carefully placed, allowed curiosity and confidence to resume their gentle flow. By late afternoon, Cronus rested beside a calm pool. The water shimmered with the colors of the fading sun, reflecting soft golds, ambers, and rose pinks across its surface. A sibling leaned over, tracing small ripples with her fingers, while another crouched nearby, observing the way sunlight danced on smooth stones. The gentle shifts he had noticed throughout the day seemed to settle naturally, influenced not by force but by subtle observation and quiet guidance. Cronus felt the gentle satisfaction of watching patterns unfold naturally, the current harmonizing themselves as he moved silently among them. Evening fell slowly, draping the valleys in soft, muted shades of amber and violet. Streams murmured over stones, leaves rustled in a faint breeze, and the air carried the delicate scent of earth and blossoms. Cronus wandered along a narrow path, observing small moments of interaction, a shared glance of wonder, a quiet laugh exchanged over a small discovery, a gentle touch offering reassurance. These moments were subtle, almost imperceptible, but they rippled outward, shaping the connections and confidence of his siblings. Above, Uranus stretched endlessly, constant and vast. Cronus felt its presence calmly, as a backdrop against which the currents of life flowed. He reflected that even amidst the immensity and permanence of the sky, small changes could shift the flow of energy below. The subtle hesitations he observed were reminders that life was never static, even in a calm, harmonious world. Observing and gently harmonizing these currents was an ongoing task, requiring patience, attentiveness, and quiet understanding. Night arrived gradually, stars twinkling softly against the deepening blue. Cronus lay on the soft grass, feeling the pulse of the earth beneath him and the faint caress of a cool breeze. The streams, the rustle of leaves, and the quiet breathing of his siblings formed a lullaby of gentle currents moving through the hills. Gaia's whispers reached him softly through the soil. Observe, guide gently, and allow the subtle shifts to find their place. Growth flows in quiet awareness. Cronus reflected on the day's gentle discoveries. The currents of curiosity, confidence, and connection continued to move in soft harmony, now interwoven with subtle signs of change. The faint hesitations and quiet pauses were not disruptions but opportunities, moments that could be nurtured, observed, and harmonized. Sleep approached, and the hills, valleys, and streams rested in calm stillness, carrying the quiet promise of continued growth, subtle awareness, and gentle unfolding. As he closed his eyes, the currents moved softly beneath the night, streams flowing, leaves rustling, siblings exploring with quiet curiosity and awareness, and faint shifts rippling gently through the delicate web of connections Cronus had nurtured. Sleep embraced him, wrapping the land in calm, ready to carry the currents forward into the days to come. Morning arrived slowly, soft golden light spilling across the hills and valleys. Dew clung to blades of grass, shimmering faintly in the warmth of the rising sun. The air carried the gentle fragrance of earth, blossoms, and warm stone. Cronus walked along a familiar path, feeling the soft moss and soil beneath his feet. Each step was deliberate, a gentle rhythm, a quiet meditation in motion, letting him sense the subtle currents of life around him. The Titans moved through the valleys with calm curiosity and soft confidence. Hesitations that had once rippled through the group now appeared only occasionally, brief and fleeting, like tiny reflections on the surface of a pool. Independence had grown steadily, nurtured by gentle guidance and careful observation. Each sibling explored, shared quiet laughter, and discovered small joys with ease, weaving subtle connections between themselves. Cronus observed them, feeling a gentle satisfaction, a calm certainty that the currents he had nurtured had settled into a harmonious rhythm. He wandered toward a gentle hill that overlooked a wide valley, the streams glinting in the soft sunlight. One sibling leaned over to examine a flower, while another balanced on a smooth stone at the edge of a small stream. The quiet movements of their exploration created faint ripples that traveled outward, subtly influencing others nearby. Cronus knelt, touching the soft moss with his fingertips, observing how the small currents of curiosity, confidence, and connection had become self-sustaining, flowing naturally without constant guidance. Afternoon warmth filled the valleys, amber and rose mingling with the soft green of hills and groves. Cronus moved slowly among his siblings, watching how their independence had strengthened into quiet assurance. One Titan guided another across a narrow stream, both moving carefully but confidently, laughter and soft words of encouragement flowing like a gentle river between them. Another tilted a smooth stone, observing the patterns of light dancing across it, while yet another paused to notice the gentle hum of the wind in the leaves. These simple, delicate actions reflected the calm fulfillment of learning, discovery, and gentle interconnection. Cronus reflected on the journey that had led to this day. The subtle hesitations, the quiet uncertainties, the small ripples of doubt, all had been threads woven into the larger currents of growth. Through patient observation, careful guidance, and gentle presence, he had helped shape a world where curiosity, confidence, and reflection moved together in harmony. Even Uranus above, vast and constant, seemed to acknowledge the calm rhythm beneath, a silent witness to the unfolding balance. Evening came softly, draping the valleys in shades of amber, rose, and violet. Streams murmured quietly over smooth stones, leaves rustled in the faint breeze, and the air carried the soft fragrance of earth and flowers. Cronus wandered slowly along a familiar path, observing the quiet interactions of his siblings, a shared glance of wonder, a gentle laugh exchanged over a small discovery, a soft gesture of guidance offered naturally and received with trust. These moments were no longer subtle ripples, but the harmonious flow of a world nurtured carefully and patiently. He paused near a calm pool where the water reflected the fading light, smooth and steady. One sibling leaned over to observe the gentle ripples made by a falling leaf, while another crouched nearby, tracing the smooth stones with careful fingers. The currents of curiosity, confidence, and connection flowed freely through them, self-directed yet intertwined. Cronus felt the quiet fulfillment of his work. The gentle currents he had nurtured were now a living, breathing harmony, moving steadily through the valleys, streams, and groves. Night fell gradually, stars emerging softly across the deepening blue of the sky. Cronus lay on the soft grass, feeling the pulse of the earth beneath him, listening to the murmuring streams and the gentle breathing of his siblings. Gaia's whispers rose faintly through the soil. The currents you have nurtured are steady, enduring, and alive. Harmony grows in quiet care, and confidence flows in gentle rhythm. Cronus let her words settle, a calm warmth spreading through him. He reflected on the journey of the Titans and of himself. From subtle disturbances and brief hesitations to growing independence and quiet exploration, the world beneath Uranus had moved gently toward balance. The siblings' confidence, curiosity, and interconnection had become self-sustaining currents, rippling outward through the hills and valleys in patterns of calm harmony. Hesitations were no longer obstacles. They were part of the gentle rhythm of life, acknowledged, observed, and harmonized. Cronus let himself rest fully, lying beneath the vast sky, the soft grass beneath him, and the faint breeze brushing his skin. The streams murmured, leaves rustled, and the faint laughter of his siblings drifted on the air, gentle and soothing. The currents of life continued to flow freely, calm and steady, carrying with them the quiet fulfillment of growth, understanding, and gentle guidance. Even beneath the immense presence of Uranus, nothing disrupted the steady rhythm. The world he had nurtured breathed softly, alive with the quiet harmony of independent yet interconnected lives. Sleep approached naturally, and Cronus closed his eyes, feeling the calm certainty of a world balanced by patient care and gentle influence. The stars shimmered faintly above, casting silver light across the hills, streams, and groves. The Titans rested quietly, their breathing soft and rhythmic, their minds filled with the gentle satisfaction of discovery, curiosity, and connection. Cronus felt the subtle satisfaction of his work unfolding perfectly, a world of calm, enduring currents, guided gently, now capable of moving freely, harmoniously, and independently. Sleep embraced him, wrapping valleys, hills, streams, and groves in a soothing, enduring stillness. The currents of life, curiosity, confidence, reflection, and gentle connection continued to flow quietly beneath the soft hush of night. The journey had reached a natural, calm conclusion, and the world rested peacefully, balanced, and full of quiet fulfillment beneath the watchful, silent sky of Uranus.